Inside the Magic, show number 364 from March 27th, 2012. It is Tuesday, March 27th, 2012, and this is show 364 of Inside the Magic. As always, I'm your host, Ricky Briganti, and we have a great show packed with Disney news from, well, across the ocean, and a little bit on land as well, and a whole lot more fun. Before we get to all of that, I do invite you to visit our website over at InsideTheMagic.net. There you'll find all of our podcast videos, photos, news, articles, and so much more. And if you ever have any news, tips, or questions, you can write to me at Ricky@InsideTheMagic.net, or you can call and leave a message on our voicemail line at 407-494-4ITM. That's 4486. And now, let's get on with the show. This week's episode of Inside the Magic is brought to you by Magical Travel. The Disney Cruise Line is closer than ever with sailings from New York, Galveston, Orlando, and Los Angeles, so book your Disney cruise vacation today for the best pricing and receive a free shipboard credit by calling Magical Travel today at 866-207-8387 or visit them online at magicaltravel.com to receive a free price quote. And be sure to mention Inside the Magic to receive your free Disney gift card for qualifying bookings when you book your Disney vacation with Magical Travel. And by Audible, get a free audiobook download and access to over 85,000 titles to choose from for their audiobook service over at audibletrial.com/InsideTheMagic. And of course, thanks very much to listeners and viewers like you and like Hope Burdine for your donation this week. And of course, all of our monthly recurring donation subscribers. Thanks very much to all of you for all of that. And now, let's get started with this week's show with a trip around the world. Got a little Polynesian music going in the background here. We'll certainly have some Caribbean-style music later in this week's show in honor of the biggest story of the week, which I'll be talking fairly extensively about in just a little bit. Of course, that would be the biggest, as I said, the biggest story of the week coming out of the world of Disney, not theme parks, but rather on the ocean, at sea. The Disney Fantasy is what I sailed on just for a few days ago. That's why I'm recording this week's show on a Tuesday. Technically, it's actually after midnight, so maybe it's Wednesday Eastern time, but it's we're still calling it the Tuesday show for the rest of the country for March 27th, and I just returned from the trip yesterday, and we'll be talking all about that later in this week's show. But first, we do have some more and plenty more, actually, Disney news to get to that happened both before and after my voyage. So let's jump right into all of that, starting with Disney's Art of Animation Resort out here at Walt Disney World. When it opens in just a couple of months, it will be the 24th hotel at Walt Disney World. And this week, well, we already knew that the first phase of Disney's Art of Animation Resort was going to open on March 31st of this year of 2012, with 3 more wings to follow after that. Well, this week, well, last week, I suppose, technically, Disney announced all the opening dates for the 3 remaining wings, and they were actually all pushed up, whichever way you want to say it. They're sooner than Disney originally had insinuated they would be. The Finding Nemo wing of the Art of Animation Resort is going to open on May 31st, as I just said. The Cars wing is going to open on June 18th, which is just 3 days after Cars Land opens out at Disney California Adventure in California, of course, at the Disneyland Resort. Then the Lion King wing of the Art of Animation Resort will be opening on August 10th, and the Little Mermaid on September 15th, which leads me to wonder if the Cars area of Art of Animation is opening just 3 days after Cars Land's opening. I wonder if Disney will try to make a little more synergy happen and make the Little Mermaid ride over at the Magic Kingdom open just in time for the Little Mermaid wing of the hotel to open on September 15th. Of course, Disney hasn't said that. I'm just speculating, but wouldn't that be nice if we had the Little Mermaid in mid-September? But anyway, the whole hotel will definitely be open. It's a value resort, of course. Will be open by mid-September. Now, let's move to Epcot, where Disney has said that they will indeed be celebrating Epcot's 30th anniversary coming up on October 1st, at least in the form of merchandise. They're working on a whole line of particularly pins, of course, lots and lots of pins with everything that Disney does, and they're going back to a lot of retro imagery to celebrate Epcot's 30th anniversary, back to images that were used in promoting Epcot when it first opened, back 30 years ago almost. And honestly, whether you like pins or not, you'll like these images. They're good looking pictures, and I look forward to seeing them, and hopefully Disney will be offering more than just merchandise when it comes to celebrating the 30th anniversary, but we'll have to wait and see. For now, it is definitely going to be celebrated, at least in the form of being able to buy stuff. And soon, making its way around the monorail tracks at Walt Disney World will be yet another wrapped monorail. Of course, previously we saw the Tronorail in promotion of Tron Legacy. That has been long gone now. Well, now Monorail Red at Walt Disney World is currently being wrapped behind the scenes in promotion of The Avengers, which is coming to theaters on May 4th. This is going to be the first time that Disney has wrapped a monorail with a Marvel superhero kind of theme. No word as to whether when it's going to debut or how long it will be around, but I would imagine it'll debut as we get closer and closer to The Avengers hitting theaters. But recently, and we talked about this last week extensively, that made its debut over at the Magic Kingdom was Storybook Circus, and more specifically, the Barnstormers starring the Great Goofini. And it may have even been just today, at Disney Parks blog offered a great look at some of the posters, the Great Goofini posters that are showing up in Storybook Circus, as well as a few that I hadn't even seen before. This whole notion of the Great Goofini, this sort of botched circus act, is really funny. Goofy, of course, starring as the Great Goofini, and I love the imagery that Disney's been using for this character within a character, if you will. And in addition to that, Disney Parks blog also released what is essentially Walt Disney Imagineering's official storyline behind the Barnstormer and much of Storybook Circus. And I want to read that to you because it is interesting to hear the official story behind Storybook Circus. It goes as follows. The greatest show in the kingdom, the Storybook Circus, has just come to town and set up in beautiful Carolwood Park. There's fun and pageantry to be had for everyone, but if it's thrills you're after, the Barnstormer featuring Goofy as the Great Goofini is the one attraction you won't want to miss. The circus fearless daredevil, the Great Goofini, has become the resident flying ace for his latest spectacular showcase of aerial acrobatics and bravery. It's plain crazy and sure to leave you breathless, and that's just the beginning. The Great Goofini will stop at nothing to amuse and entertain his audience. The Canine Cannonball, the Reckless Rocketeer, and Bear Wrestling are just a few of his notable feats of peril, showcased in fully illustrated posters that line the circus walkway. So the next time you visit the Storybook Circus in search of some excitement, keep your eye out for the Great Goofini. You never know if he'll be blasting, crashing, or soaring through the skies, but you'll definitely have a good time watching. That's a lot of fun. Good story there behind the Barnstormer and the Great Goofini, and it's a fun sort of rite of passage ride that is once again open at the Magic Kingdom, and Storybook Circus really looks fantastic, and I'm looking forward to seeing what is to come in the future out of that and the rest of New Fantasyland. Now let's hop back on over to Epcot, where this hasn't been officially announced, and I'm not even sure if I mentioned this on the show in recent weeks. I may have already, but Epcot's French Bakery in the France Pavilion at the World Showcase apparently is going to be having a major renovation pretty soon. Going to have a big expansion with a new building, 3,000 square foot kitchen, a modern bakery that will be serving fresh bread all day long and sandwiches. Apparently it's all going to debut by March of 2013, so a little ways away, and Disney has not officially announced it yet, but apparently the chefs over there have been speaking in interviews about it a little early, so I imagine an official announcement will be on the way very, very soon. Over at Disney's Hollywood Studios, here's something that was reported by TMZ this week, and, you can take it for what you will with the fact that it was reported by TMZ, but apparently the American Idol contestants that are going to be this season on the show and getting not only first place, but first through fifth place will all be appearing at some point at the Disney's Hollywood Studios American Idol attraction. Apparently it is in their contracts that not only the winner of American Idol, but all of the top 5, and maybe not necessarily at the same time, but at some point or another will be showing up there. So if you're still an American Idol fan, still watching, then you'll want to pay attention and wait for that to happen. Back over to the Magic Kingdom, the Pirates League in Adventureland is bringing back one of its popular, at least according to Disney, popular makeup packages. It is the Mermaid makeup. You can get that once again at Pirates League, and they're also introducing a new get-up, and it is in honor of Jake and the Neverland Pirates. So if you have a young one who is a fan of that show, then you might want to take them over to the Pirates League in the Magic Kingdom to get made over as Jake. Now let's turn to the Disneyland Resort. I mentioned earlier that, I don't know, what did I mention earlier about California? I know I said something about it. Oh, you're right. Of course, Cars Land. That's the big thing that's coming up. Did I mention I was recording this past midnight? Yeah. So Cars Land, of course, is coming up in just a couple of months. June 15th is the official opening date for that. Well, Disney has now announced something else that will be opening on June 15th in addition to Cars Land and Buena Vista Street. It's going to be the replacement for Electronica called the Mad Tea Party. You know, we've talked about the Mad Tea Party before, but didn't know when it was going to debut. It's going to be on that same date. It's going to feature dancers, musicians, and DJs all showing up in the park for the first time on June 15th, and when Disney made that announcement just a couple of days ago, they also released some additional artwork, not only showing off the band, but also the looks of the Alice in Wonderland inspired dancers and DJs and all of that. There's actually, they've released some details and some descriptions of the various characters, if you will, that'll be there. Really, it's DJs and dancers and musicians, but they're going to be dressed in sort of these contemporary modernized versions of the Mad Hatter, the March Hare, the Dormouse, the Caterpillar, the Cheshire Cat, the White Rabbit, who's going to be the DJ with glowing blue ears, and of course, they also mentioned that Alice herself is going to quote-unquote drop in during the party at some point, whatever that means. So we'll have to wait and see how this whole Mad Tea Party shapes up this summer in the Hollywoodland area of Disney California Adventure. And actually, one more note about Mad Tea Party. Just today, Disney also said there's going to be plenty of Mad Tea Party merchandise. And of course, Mad Tea Party, in this case, is spelled Mad letter T Party. There's going to be shirts with that name on it, along with sheer scarves, artwork, headwear like Mad Hatter and Cheshire Cat fasteners, glow hawks. Yeah, you heard me, glow hawks, and light up rabbit ears. So if you've ever been annoyed by those blinky things that you put on your head that kind of bounce around, well, now you're going to have glowing mohawks and light up rabbit ears to get in your way when you're trying to watch World of Color. But anyway, moving on from there, here's much better news than Glowhawks. Finally, this is long overdue. Disney Imagineer and Disney legend Alice Davis is finally going to be getting a window on Main Street, USA. It's going to happen on May 10th at Disneyland Park. She, of course, has been famous within the world of Disney for her extensive costume design work over many, many, many years in the parks and beyond. She was also the wife of the late Imagineer Mark Davis, whose designs are seen in the Haunted Mansion, Pirates, and many, many other attractions. She, fortunately, is still around, unlike her late husband, and it's a wonderful thing that she is getting a window on Main Street. Now let's jump overseas, where something has been really talked about for the last day or so amongst the Disney community. A new commercial has shown up in honor, really for Tokyo Disney Resort. They're getting closer and closer to celebrating the 30th anniversary. That'll happen on April 15th of next year, 2013. And the new commercial that they are running is an anime-style commercial. I don't know that Disney has ever produced an anime commercial for one of the parks, and I don't even think Disney actually produced this commercial specifically. It's showing sort of a young girl in the Japanese animation style, and she grows up going to Tokyo Disneyland over those 30 years, or 29 as it is right now, almost 29, and eventually growing old and watching her family sort of grow up with her. And it's kind of an interesting ad, very different. You might definitely look it up online and watch it. Here's some news that goes right along with this Polynesian music that I'm playing in the background. New food and beverage options will soon be under construction at Disney's Aulani Resort over in Hawaii. Apparently, since Aulani opened a few months ago, I guess back in August of last year, many of their guests have complained about the lack of food options, specifically quick service options. Apparently, food is very, very expensive there. Well, Disney has responded by saying they're building Mama's Snack Stop, a quick service food location that will open in June. It will feature hot dogs and chicken tenders and sausages and stuff like that, chips, fries, all the quick service sorts of things. And Disney did even emphasize when they announced that they have developed this idea in response to guests looking for these additional meal options, and that the construction of it will get kind of in the way. So if you're going to be going to Aulani in the next few months, you're going to see some construction while Disney works on this, but it'll be worth it in the end. Also announced this week, a new Adventures by Disney adventure is on the horizon for 2013. It will be taking travelers to Southeast Asia, to the countries of Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. It's a 12-day, 11-night itinerary that includes cities like Saigon, Hanoi, Hoi An, Siem Reap, and Angkor Wat. And if you're interested in visiting Southeast Asia, Adventures by Disney may be the way to do it next year. Let's turn to the world of movies now, where just a few days ago, the Muppets received their star, finally, on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in front of Disney's El Capitan Theater. The event was emceed by Chamber President and CEO LaRon Gubler, with special guest speakers Rich Ross, the chairman of the Walt Disney Studios, Lisa Henson, CEO of the Jim Henson Company, and quite a few Muppets were there as well. Kermit the Frog, Miss Piggy, Fozzie, Gonzo, Animal, Pepe the King Prawn Sweetums, and Walter, who's of course the newest Muppet who was in the recent Muppets film. The star that's been added right in front of the El Capitan Theater is, let's see, the 2,466th star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So congratulations to the Muppets for receiving that. If you actually want to see video of the ceremony and hear the Muppets make a few jokes about the whole thing, head on over to InsideTheMagic.net and have a few laughs there. Continuing with the world of movies, in not-so-good news, of course, John Carter's been out at the box office for a few weeks now, and many were writing it off as a complete miserable failure before it even hit theaters, and well, it seems like that has become true. Disney has basically released that they are planning on recording a $200 million loss on John Carter. Apparently, it's a biggest loss ever on a single film at the box office. Disney, of course, is looking forward to The Avengers, which will do very, very well at the box office and likely make everybody forget about John Carter. But for the moment, not good news for the studios. Here's some more not great news. This is for Disney Animation. Glenn Keane worked at Walt Disney Animation for around 37 years, and this week he unexpectedly resigned. He sent out a letter just a few days ago, March 23rd, and I want to read this letter to you now because he's been an integral part of Disney Animation for, as I said, close to 4 decades now. Keane wrote, "Dear colleagues and friends of the Walt Disney, excuse me, let me start over. Dear colleagues and friends of the Walt Disney Animation Studio, after long and thoughtful consideration, I have decided to leave Disney Animation. I am convinced that animation really is the ultimate art form of our time, with endless new territories to explore. I can't resist its siren call to step out and discover them. Disney has been my artistic home since September 9th, 1974. I owe so much to those great animators who mentored me, Eric Larson, Frank Thomas, and Ollie Johnston, as well as to the many other wonderful people at Disney whom I have been fortunate to work with in the past nearly 38 years. Over these 4 decades, I've seen so many changes, but the one thing that remains the same is that we all do this because we love it. I am humbled and deeply honored to have worked side by side with so many artists, producers, and directors during my career here at Disney, and I am tremendously proud of the films which together we have created. I will deeply miss working with you, with my most sincere and heartfelt good wishes for your and Disney's continued artistic growth and success. Glenn." So definitely a loss there for Disney Animation. It's sad to see such a legend in the animation world go away from Disney, but it sounds like he's got his own projects he wants to pursue away from Disney, and we certainly wish him the best of luck there. Now, in the world of D23, the official Disney fan club, they've partnered up with Turner Classic Movies for their upcoming TCM Classic Film Festival in Hollywood, California, in which they're going to be displaying 2 Disney live-action film classics. On Friday, April 13th, Kirk Douglas will be there in person to present at Grauman's Chinese Theater the first public screening of the newly restored 1954 film 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Of course, Kirk Douglas was the star of that film, or at least one of the stars of that film, and that should be pretty darn amazing for anybody who's there in person to see him introduce that film, and then to see this newly restored version. Very, very jealous of anybody who's going there. And then on Saturday, April 14th, and the following day, will be the 75th anniversary screening of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Sticking with the world of movies now, though not quite as classic as 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea as Snow White, but rather something entirely new, the latest in the line of Disney Fairies movies. Disney has announced this week a new full-length CG animated feature film called Secret of the Wings, starring, of course, Tinkerbell and her fairy friends, Fawn, Iridessa, Rosetta, Silvermist, and Vidia, and a new fairy adding to the bunch called Periwinkle. It's going to be on Blu-ray, DVD, and digital download, available October 23rd of this year, 2012. Also, for the first time ever, a Fairies film will be available on Disney Blu-ray 3D. Let's move on to the world of video games now, where this week a new release came out following in the footsteps of Connect Disneyland Adventures. This one is called Connect Rush, a Disney Pixar adventure. It's not set in a theme park, but rather, let me take a step back here. It's for Xbox 360. Of course, you have to have the Connect system, and the game is set in a fictional Pixar park. It's kind of a hub and spoke design. You walk into it virtually, and there's 5 Pixar sort of lands around you. You can choose from The Incredibles, Cars, Ratatouille, Toy Story, and Up. And within each one, you design your own avatar, and actually let the system sort of design it for you. And from there, you become characters in each of these worlds, whether it's a superhero in Up or actually becoming a car in the Cars area of the game, and you use the Kinect system to jump and wave your hands and drive a car and duck and run and all these kinds of crazy things that you do when you play Kinect. And it sounds exhausting, and honestly it is. I received a copy to review, which I posted a review over at InsideTheMagic.net, and it was surprisingly fun. I found the Ratatouille area a little bit tiresome. Not that it was exhausting, they were all exhausting, but that was a little more boring than the others. But The Incredibles, becoming a superhero, really, really fun, and driving yourself as a car around, also really fun, and playing through the world of Toy Story, definitely favorites there. Ratatouille and Up, not quite as fun, but certainly worth downloading the demo, try it out, and if you're big into that whole Kinect thing where you're using your body as a controller, and you're a big Disney Pixar fan as well, you should definitely check it out. It is indeed a fun game. You can head on over to InsideTheMagic.net for a further review of Connect Rush, a Disney Pixar adventure. Another video game is coming out, but coming soon, and it was just announced very, very recently. It's a first ever video game based on a theme park that will be released to Facebook, the first social game of its kind from Disney, inspired by Disney's Animal Kingdom theme park called Disney Animal Kingdom Explorers. Within this upcoming Facebook game, you will be able to create and nurture a wildlife nature preserve around the Tree of Life, and of course you'll have plenty of wild animals that you'll be taking care of, and you'll see some recognizable sights from within Disney's Animal Kingdom theme park. And no date has been set yet for when that is coming out, but it is being developed with Disney's acquisition of Playdom, the company who's been developing social networking games for quite some time. Of course, as soon as it was announced, many immediately jumped on the conversation saying, why can't Disney bring back virtual Magic Kingdom if they can have Disney Animal Kingdom Explorers? Wouldn't it be awesome if virtual Magic Kingdom VMK came back in the form of a Facebook game? And I completely agree. That would be a wonderful platform for that to return, but of course, nothing like that has been announced yet, or possibly ever. But here is something that was finally officially announced, and many details were released. For those of you who were fans of Disney Epic Mickey, the sequel is official. Disney Epic Mickey, The Power of Two. It was announced just a few days ago by creator of the game, Warren Spector, and there's many changes being made this time around that seem like they're going to drastically improve upon all of the complaints that were around the first game. First of all, it's going to feature voice actors this time. The characters are not going to be silent, but rather have actual speaking parts, and beyond that, it's actually going to be a musical. They're going to sing with original songs. The character of Oswald, who has never been officially voiced before, is going to be voiced, and I love this, by veteran voice actor Frank Welker. Look up Frank Welker online if you don't know who he is, and you'll be amazed at how many voices he has done over the years for Disney and beyond. It's going to be a cooperative play game. That is, you can play one player or two player. As Warren Spector said, it's drop-in, drop-out co-op, which means if you're playing by yourself, you can play as Mickey, and Oswald will be running around with you, but if you play as two player, then the second player can take over Oswald. Mickey is still going to wield a brush and thinner, whereas Oswald's going to have a remote control and command electricity, apparently. And best of all, the game is no longer going to be Nintendo Wii exclusive. It's also going to be available for PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and apparently also on Nintendo 3DS. More specifically, with regards to complaints of the first game, the biggest complaint of the original Epic Mickey was the camera issues, the camera controls, the fact that you couldn't really see where you were going. Well, Warren Spector addressed this at the top of the announcement. He said, quote, "We've had a team working on the camera from literally the day we finished the first game. They'll be working on it until the day we ship the second game. There have been over 1,000 specific changes made to the camera. Our goal is that you will not have to touch the manual camera controls even once to play through the main story path of this game," end quote. So clearly, Spector is listening. That was the number one question he got asked repeatedly about I wouldn't say failure of the original Epic Mickey, but the issues with it. As far as the content and the actual game setting of the new one, you're going to be back in the world of Wasteland once again. And Warren Spector also said, quote, "There's always been one part of the Disney parks that I've always wanted to get into Wasteland. Frontierland has changed so much since it started. There's so much forgotten history there, so Frontierland is going to get a pretty good exploration this time around, plus some other places that we'll keep secret for now," end quote. So lots to look forward to in Epic Mickey 2. It's still a ways away. I'm not even sure exactly when it's going to be released. I don't think they've announced a release date yet, but it is in the works. Another video game in the works announced this week, inspired by the upcoming Disney Pixar movie Brave from Disney Interactive Media Group, will be Brave, the video game, based on the movie. You're basically going to play the movie. It's in development for PS3, Xbox 360, Wii, DS, and Windows, PC, and Mac. That's going to be coming out this summer in conjunction with the movie. And final bit of news this week. I told you there was a lot more news than just Disney Fantasy. This last bit is that the new Disney musical, Newsies, began previews on Broadway just a couple of weeks ago. March 15th has extended its limited engagement. The official opening will be March 19th, but it will all continue now. This limited engagement will continue now through August 19th. So you have lots of time if you're interested in seeing Newsies, which has had a tremendous opening so far, or even preview opening. Anyway, that is it for your news from around the world this week. And this week's tip comes in from me, and I just got off the Disney Fantasy, of course, and my favorite element of the Disney Dream, which I sailed on last year, and the Disney Fantasy this year, is the AquaDuck water slide. Such a wonderful, fun time. But after now riding on the Disney Fantasy, I must say, here's the tip for any of you who are going to be sailing on the Disney Dream or the Disney Fantasy, is that, it's no fun waiting in a line for attractions, especially when it's the only real ride on this cruise ship. The line can get fairly long during the day for the AquaDuck, and waiting 20, 30 minutes to go around a 2-minute slide is not a lot of fun. So my tip is to go to the AquaDuck on during show times or dinner times. When you go on a Disney cruise, you have an assigned rotational dining dinner time, and then earlier or later, depending on if you have the early seating or the late seating, you will have a show time that you can go to as well in the Walt Disney Theater. And the majority of the people on board the ship go to dinner or the show at any given time during those roughly 5:30 to 10 p.m. hours, and that is when you need to go to the AquaDuck. There will be nobody around. That's when they're cleaning the decks, but the AquaDuck is still open, and you can just go on and on and on and on and on and on repeatedly without waiting at all, and it is much more fun that way, and you get to see it at night, which is spectacular. So there it is, my tip for your Disney cruise. Much more from the Disney Cruise Line coming up here in just a minute, but you can email your own tips into tips@insidethemagic.net. But before we do get to this main feature talking all about the Disney Fantasy, I need to put in a quick word about Theme Park Connection. I mentioned last week the exciting announcement that they're working on shooting a reality show based on their business, and their business, of course, is buying and selling primarily rare and unique Disney collectibles. They've got a store and warehouse that has recently expanded out here in Winter Garden, Florida, which is about 15-20 minutes north of the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World. It's accessible and open to the public now 6 days a week. They're open on Saturdays now, which is new, only for about a week now they have been, but for the foreseeable future they will be about 10 to 2 on Saturdays and regular business hours Monday through Friday. Of course, if you're not in the area, you can't stop by, you can visit them online. themeparkconnection.com is their website. They've got an eBay store where they sell plenty of great items there, so no matter where you are, you can check it out, and I guarantee you're going to find something that you want to buy. Again, check it out, information, directions, and of course their online store over at themeparkconnection.com. And by the sound of that horn, it means it is time to talk about my voyage on the Disney Fantasy cruise ship. I just got back from 3 days, or rather 3 nights, out at sea aboard the brand new Disney Cruise Line ship, the sister ship to the Disney Dream, which I sailed on last January during the christening cruise. This was an inaugural magical preview cruise, as Disney is calling it. They're sailing on 2 of them. Actually, one of them is going on right now for the next couple of days, but I had a chance to hop on the first one, which was a wonderful, wonderful treat. I had a great time. It was naturally exhausting because I tried to see absolutely everything that I possibly could and pack it all into 3 days. Of course, last year it was the Disney Dream. It was only 2 days, and that was even more exhausting, so I was happy to have the extra day. Now, if you remember back with the Disney Dream christening, it was show number 304. And that episode of Inside the Magic that I talked all about my trip on the Disney Dream clocked in at almost 4 hours long. Now, I promise you I'm not going to be talking that long about the Disney Fantasy this week. That was my first trip on the Disney Cruise Line, and I had so much to say about it and so many new experiences. I'm not going to go into that as much detail about every little aspect because so much of the Disney Fantasy is identical to the Disney Dream. They are, after all, sister ships, which means I want to say about 80%, if not more, maybe 85% of the ships are identical. The layout of the decks and many of the features are almost exactly the same. So I'm going to focus more on the new features on the Disney Fantasy, and if you want kind of a primer for the basics of the Disney Cruise Line, maybe you want to go back to show 304 and listen to that massive 3 hour and 38 minute podcast to get all of the details, but we'll certainly be running through plenty of details here, and rather than going chronologically like I did last time through my entire trip, I'm going to actually organize my thoughts here into a few different categories so you can get an idea of what goes on a Disney cruise, what I liked, what I didn't like, and what are really the best parts of the Disney Fantasy ship, which is, again, it's all new. It's actually going to be sailing its maiden voyage just a few days from now. It'll be leaving from Port Canaveral, its home port here in Florida, on March 31st. So let's, with that said, let's jump into it, actually beginning with Port Canaveral itself. And those of you watching the video version of this show, I want to let you know that I have prepared 200 photographs for you to enjoy while I am talking about this. So those of you listening to the audio version of this show, you might want to tune into the video version to really see what I'm talking about. And of course, already I've posted several articles over at InsideTheMagic.net, along with lots and lots of videos, and I plan on posting more. I actually shot about 50 gigabytes of video and well over 1,000 photos that I'll be posting from the Disney Fantasy over the next few days. So be sure to keep visiting InsideTheMagic.net for all of that. So let's get on with it now. Let's talk about showing up to Port Canaveral. We actually drove ourselves this time. I went with my wife, Michelle. And last time we took Disney's bus transportation. This time we drove ourselves, which was wonderful. It was very easy to park. You just walk right over to the ship. It's great to see the ship in the distance as you're pulling up. You go through a quick sort of security check, and you're in, and then you get to check in and you board. And they have characters right there in the Port Canaveral boarding area. Minnie Mouse was there when we were checking in. Snapped a couple of quick photos of her looking lovely in front of a model of one of the Disney ships. And from there, it was time to actually step aboard the Disney Fantasy. There were Disney Fantasy inaugural banners all over, decorating the Port Canaveral entrance area, the specific terminal that leads you onto the Disney Fantasy. And it's always just an exciting moment to walk through, walk across the gangway, get your photo taken along the way, and ultimately, the most exciting aspect of any Disney cruise vacation is stepping into the main Deck 3 atrium of the ship for the very first time. It is a beautiful area. One of the most beautiful areas of the entire ship, decorated in gold and blue, and just so many wonderful, tiny little details to be found throughout the area. The chandelier at the top of this main atrium is absolutely gorgeous, just shining over the whole area. It's mostly gold in there, just looks lavish without being gaudy. It's just nice, and it's huge. It's 3 stories tall. You wouldn't expect such a huge area to be found on a cruise ship. You step in there and you feel like you've stepped into a 5-star hotel, and that feeling just goes on and on when you're walking around the interiors of the ship. And again, I mentioned I'm posting a lot of videos from that. I did a complete Deck 3 tour, including this atrium area. You can watch that over at InsideTheMagic.net, as well as on our YouTube channel. The star of the atrium this time around is not Donald Duck like on the Disney Dream, but rather Minnie Mouse. She has her own statue in the atrium, looking lovely as always, and definitely a big photo opportunity right there to get your picture next to the grand staircase with all the character-filled trimmings everywhere around the area. Even the elevators of the atrium just look phenomenal. It's just such a nice, welcoming environment. Of course, there's some glass elevators there as well. That's just enjoyable. From there, once I got on board the ship, we did a few things, checked in. Actually, here's a good tip. As soon as we got on board, we had 2 things that we wanted to do immediately, and we accomplished them both. We wanted to make sure our dining arrangements were set up exactly as they needed to be. We were going to be dining at Palo, which is a $20 extra dining experience. Normally, the rotational dining is included with your Disney cruise, but for Palo and Remy, they're upcharge restaurants. Remy, $75 extra. Palo, the Italian restaurant, is $20 extra. Let me put a disclaimer on this whole thing. I was invited to go on this cruise, which means Disney picked up the tab for my cruise. In addition, they picked up the tab for Palo. The only thing I paid for is the other thing that we booked when going on this cruise. We booked it right at the beginning, which was we headed over to the Senses Spa. We booked a massage for myself and Michelle, and Disney did not pay for that. Of course, I bought a bunch of merchandise as well, but the experience itself, Disney did pay for us, and don't think that affected my opinions of anything at all, because trust me, I have a few negatives to go with the many positives. But anyway, let's get on with it now. And this is definitely one of, so that was the tip, is definitely check your dining right away when you get on board. We actually were scheduled for the earlier dining, which is 5:45 p.m., which is way too early for me to eat dinner. I usually eat dinner at 8, 9, possibly 10 o'clock p.m. And so we were able to change our dining time to the later 8 o'clock seating, which was wonderful. And then we booked our spa area as well. Good thing to do right when you get on the ship. So what I was really excited about was to get up onto the decks, the top decks of the cruise, because that is one of the most enjoyable areas, and you get to see the port all surrounding the ship, and just see everybody excited to be jumping in the pool right away. The many pools filling the top decks, deck 11, deck 12, deck 13. We actually still had our bags with us at this point because our stateroom wasn't going to be ready for another half an hour or so. So I was lugging my my bag around the ship as I was taking pictures and trying to post some pictures and video before we sailed away and cell service disappeared. Of course, internet service on a Disney cruise is, it actually was not awful, but for downloading it was okay. It was spotty, didn't always work, but when it worked, it was reasonably quick that you could actually get some things accomplished. But don't plan on posting pictures and stuff to Facebook when you're out at sea, because it's just a disaster. Uploading speed is horribly slow. I actually ran a speed test for the ship's internet while we were out there, and we got about 1 megabit down, which wasn't horrible considering we were out in the middle of the ocean. But upload was 0.1 megabytes, which was just not so good. But anyway, walking around the top decks, definitely one of my favorite activities aboard the Disney Fantasy. Just a beautiful area, watching the AquaDuck sail around in the tubes around that top deck, the big video screen playing Disney movies, and just seeing everyone lounging around and swimming and people watching, just a wonderful pastime. But my primary focus as soon as I got on board was I wanted to see one of the newest features on the Disney Fantasy, and that was the Aqua Lab. This is something that I really wanted to make sure to post about before we sailed away, because I knew Disney really hadn't offered much of a look at the Aqua Lab prior to getting on board the ship, which is why I was so excited to see it. And it is a wonderful water play area that's been themed with the AquaDuck in mind, but it is completely different than the AquaDuck water slide, which I'll talk about in a minute onto itself. But the Aqua Lab play area features Huey, Dewey, and Louie. They're the characters. This is basically their workshop where they built the AquaDuck, as the story goes. And of course, their workshop is, it's kind of fallen apart. It's got leaks, and it's got pipes running everywhere, and it's got a big boat and these buckets that dump water on you, and it's just a wonderfully themed area that I went through, and I got absolutely drenched going through there, which was fantastic. It's such a fun water area with interactivity, which is really great. A lot of these sort of kids' water play areas just squirt you with water and that's it. But this one, you actually interact with much that's going on. There's water spouts on the ground that you're supposed to stomp on. There's things on the wall that says plug the leaky pipes, and you're supposed to put your hands on them and stop them. And then when you cover them, they actually stop. But then another one springs a leak, and you put your hand over that one. And that's, fun as well. There's these buckets overhead, along with the a big dinghy boat. Well, I guess a small dinghy boat overhead. And the buckets get filled with water, and you can push this thing around in a circle until the buckets dump water on you. And just goes from there. There's so many other just sort of little knobs you can crank, and signs from Huey, Dewey, and Louie that says basically you are running the AquaDuck, theoretically, as the story goes, as you're going through all of these interactive experiences, turning wheels and all of this, and things squirt you with water unexpectedly, and it's just so much fun to go through all of that. I really enjoyed the Aqua Lab, and I think it's a wonderful addition to the Disney Fantasy. It was not on the Disney Dream. On the Disney Dream, in this area was actually a bar for adults, so it was nice to see that, and that bar was moved to a sort of weird corner of the ship now, and then the Aqua Lab's in its place, and it's for all ages to just go through and enjoy and have fun. I certainly did. Now, talking about the pool decks, so one of my favorite times to go up on the decks of both the Dream and the Fantasy is at night, when it's all lit up in red and yellow and blue and white, and it just looks spectacular. And the AquaDuck water slide has these sort of circling red and white lights around it, and usually there's nobody around. I would go out there at 1, 2, 3 in the morning when there's literally nobody around the area, and just take take pictures. If you're a photographer, you will love going around this area. Unfortunately, the pools are closed at the wee hours of the morning. The regular pools close at 10, 11 o'clock, depending on the night. The adult pool closes at midnight, but it's just nice to see everything all lit up. And when everything is open, and riding the AquaDuck, as I said, is a lot of fun at night. Speaking of the AquaDuck, of course, it is easily my favorite element of both the Disney Dream and the Disney Fantasy. It's just such a brilliant addition to put a water coaster inside this enclosed clear tube aboard a cruise ship, and to go high above the water. You're on deck 11, really where the AquaDuck is. It's more like deck 12, deck 13. And to climb inside this water slide in a tube, either by yourself or one other person, and slide over everyone below you, slide over the decks, and slide looking out over the ocean around you is just such an amazing experience. I literally lost count how many times I did the AquaDuck this time around on the Disney Fantasy. Last time on the Dream, I only did it 4 times, I think, and I was really regretting it. So this time I made sure to do the AquaDuck, ride the AquaDuck as many times as I possibly could. It was one of the first things I did on the ship. It was one of the last things I did, and I did it many times in between. As I said in the tip earlier, I actually only waited in line for the AquaDuck once the entire time, and I waited about 15 minutes, and it was not very fun. So I do encourage you to go when there is no line during sort of the off hours around the pool. Maybe you're parked at Castaway Cay and you come back early, and there's most of the people that are on the ship are actually on shore. Great time to do it then. The hours for the AquaDuck are all the daylight hours, and then a bit into the night as well. Closes sort of in the, I wouldn't even say the early evening. Usually closes about 10 p.m., which is not too bad. As different nights, if it's a Pirates in the Caribbean night, it actually closes a little bit later, which is really nice. And it is simply a fun experience to see. One of the more funny moments I saw while on board with the AquaDuck was when there was a bit of scaffolding set up, and the cleaning crew was cleaning the big clear tube that is the AquaDuck, but it was still running. And when that happened, the tube went by, and the people inside the tube were waving at the cleaning crew, and they waved back, and everybody's just happy to be on board, and it's just a fun time for everybody. Of course, if you don't meet the height requirements for the AquaDuck, there is a smaller kiddie slide that's a big giant Mickey Mouse hand holding up this bright yellow slide that goes around in a sort of tornado fashion, and adults are not allowed on that, only children, and that's definitely one that the younger audiences aboard the ship who may be jealous of the AquaDuck or maybe scared of the AquaDuck. Who knows? I saw some adults who were scared of the AquaDuck also, but anyway, it's a younger slide for you to enjoy. Of course, another bit of entertainment aboard the top decks of the ship is sunning. If you're big into just sitting out in the sun and getting a tan, there were plenty of guests looking to do that all throughout the days at sea. People just lying around, soaking in the sun. Definitely one of those things that you just do when you're on board a ship, and just kind of sit there and relax and do nothing for a while. And speaking of doing nothing, my favorite spot to do that, and certainly the best spot for adults on the Disney Fantasy as well as on the Disney Dream, is the Quiet Cove area. The Quiet Cove is for ages 18 and up. Teenagers and younger are not allowed in this area. And the area has actually been expanded. The whole adult area has been expanded aboard the Disney Fantasy from the Disney Dream. I know when I talked about the Dream last year, I said that I was disappointed by the adult area because the pool wasn't big enough to actually swim in. You just kind of wade in the pool, and unfortunately that's still true on the Fantasy. It's one of my few complaints about the Disney Fantasy ship, is that it's the Quiet Cove, specifically the pool there, is simply not big enough to swim in. You can wade, you can relax, you can certainly enjoy it. It is a wonderful place to just kind of lounge around without any kind of kids screaming and running, and there's a pool area that's a little bit deeper, but it's just not very big, and then there's a more shallow area with some mist alongside a bar that you can relax in. There's these wonderful hot tubs, which I definitely spent plenty of time in, that look out over the ocean, and just underneath the hot tubs, at the base of the hot tubs, they're actually glass bottom jacuzzis where you can look down, straight down the ship into the ocean passing below. They kind of hang out over the ship a little bit, which is just a wonderful sight. Also within that Quiet Cove area is the Cove Cafe. I understand it's one of the better places to get internet connection. I actually didn't try it out there, but I always saw a lot of people with laptops sitting in there. And of course, there's a bar, and you can get little snacks there as well. But the new feature for adults, the really sort of expanded adult area aboard the Disney Fantasy that was not on the Disney Dream, is called Satellite Falls. Now, at the forward, the top deck forward of the ship, that's where they have these big, I'm sure you've seen them, big, or at least seen pictures of them, big round white, what are essentially, I guess, satellite transmitters or receivers or whatever. So they've kind of incorporated a water feature into this and called it Satellite Falls. Underneath one of these big globes, these big white globes, is this wonderfully calming rain curtain that goes around, a complete 360 around it, and it's a really nice feature. If you've been out in the sun for a long time, the water is not heated here, so it is cold, and it feels good if you are hot. If you're not hot, then maybe it's a little too cold, but it is a nice feature. You can both sit on the edge and just put your feet in the water, or you can actually go underneath the rain curtain and sit there and just enjoy it. And on the Disney Dream, this area was really just an open seating area that did nothing. So it was nice that they made it into now an adults-only area aboard the Disney Fantasy, adding this new water feature, but still plenty of seating as well. The nearby concierge seating area still exists. It didn't replace that, but it's kind of in front of that, and it's got great views out of the front of the ship. Certainly a great photo opportunity to see where the ship is headed as you move forward. So if you want to see video, I took, of course, the little waterproof GoPro camera underneath Satellite Falls, and you can see that over at InsideTheMagic.net. So moving on from the decks of the Disney Fantasy, let's talk about the staterooms. Of course, this is where you're going to be sleeping. This is where you're going to be walking around a lot of times, dumping your stuff into the rooms and coming and going all the time. So you go down many hallways. There's many decks worth of staterooms, and one thing that actually Michelle noticed that was kind of odd, the carpets that line these very, very long hallways to the staterooms have this great design featuring Disney cruise ships and the continents of the world, and have stars on the different ports that Disney sails to. But if you look kind of closely at the shapes of the countries that are on this carpet, well, South America looks pretty good, and Africa looks pretty good, and Europe looks pretty good, but the United States looks a little odd. There's kind of no New England, and there's no Florida, and Texas and sort of the Mexico area looks a little weird, and so does California. I don't know. It's just kind of misshapen on the carpet. It's very, very odd. But anyway, just one of those bizarre details that didn't, I guess, quite turn out proper. But anyway, moving on to the actual stateroom itself. We stayed in what's called a deluxe veranda stateroom on the Disney Fantasy. It's the same type of room we stayed in the Disney Dream, except we got really lucky on the Dream, and we got one of the aft rooms with a big wraparound balcony. Made the room bigger, certainly made the balcony huge. This time around, we got sort of ordinary, if you want to call it that, stateroom, a deluxe veranda stateroom, which was still very nice. It had a nice big comfy bed. My feet hung off the bed just a little bit, but it was comfortable. The pillows were comfortable. The sheets were really soft. There's a nice couch area. There's a desk. There's a TV with lots and lots of options. I don't know why you would go on a cruise and watch TV, but if you really need to watch TV, if you somehow got bored or it's late at night or whatever, they've got on demand of Disney movies and Disney Channel shows and live action animation, and of course they've got plenty of Disney programming on regular TV as well. Definitely plenty to watch there. The whole room was quite cozy. The restroom, the bathroom area separated, much like it is on the Dream, into two separate components. One where it's a sink and a mirror and the toilet, and then the other side-by-side room is where the shower and another sink and another mirror are. And it seemed like the shower was a bit more interesting aboard the Disney Fantasy. There's two shower heads. One is a rain sort of shower head, and that one just pours pours down on the top of your head, and there's another one that's a handheld nozzle that you can use that way. And then there's also a third setting that will fill up the bathtub, and there's sort of even though it's a small circular bathtub, there's an area where you can put your feet up and sit down in there. So definitely a surprisingly good shower for being on such a small area on a cruise ship. The controls were not exactly obvious when you first got in there. You didn't know which direction controlled what, and it was possible to actually get squirted with some pretty cold water. But anyway, you get used to it pretty quickly. So, of course, the best feature of the deluxe veranda room is the veranda, or the balcony, and it's just a wonderful view looking out the balcony, the private balcony, well, semi-private balcony. Once you stand out there, you can definitely see to the other balconies right next to you. If you're leaning on the railing, you can see everybody else around you, so it's not totally private. Also, if you've got people next door or adjoining rooms, it looked like you could actually open up the wall between the balconies and create one larger balcony, which is kind of a nice feature if you know the people who are next to you and you don't mind, looking at each other's window and all that. But balcony is just wonderful. It's a great place to sit and just watch the ocean waves go by, watch the sunset, and looking downward from the balcony is certainly an interesting view. As I said earlier, you could see sort of the water passing underneath from that the hot tubs in the Quiet Cove area. Well, you can just look straight down from your balcony and see the life rafts below you, and then the crashing waters next to the ship as well. Really, really excellent room. I had almost no complaints, really no complaints about this style of room. And of course, one of the Disney touches that happens when your room is made up while you're gone is towel art. I came back to find a really creepy, weird-looking face staring at me, hanging from a hanger made of a towel with wearing my sunglasses. I had never seen one quite like that before. And then there were others like elephants and other animals sitting on the bed and that kind of thing. Always kind of funny to see the unique creations that they come up with. Anyway, so the other type of main stateroom, there are many different types of rooms of different sizes, but the other type of main stateroom on the Disney Fantasy, much like on the Disney Dream, is the interior stateroom, which is what Disney had, invented this whole concept of the magical porthole to make the interior rooms seem like they have a view to the outside, with even some Disney Plusing involved there. It's a live HD view on a video screen shaped like a porthole above the bed on these smaller interior rooms, and not only do you see that live view outside, corresponding to whatever direction your room is facing, but they also add Disney characters that go flying or floating by every once in a while. About every 15 minutes or so, these animated characters come by from the worlds of Disney and Pixar, which is definitely a lot of fun. So even the interior rooms are plussed a little bit by Disney, and you can definitely you can see video on the website from the Disney Dream right now for those magical portholes. And then there is going to be, I'm going to post some video for the magical portholes, which have been updated for the Disney Fantasy very soon. So stay tuned for that. And yes, you can turn it off. There's a switch, so you can actually turn off the porthole and make it go away when you don't want it there. So, one of the most exciting moments getting on a Disney cruise is getting on the Disney cruise and walking through that atrium. Well, an equally exciting moment, if not more so, would be the actual act of sailing away. And I was on the Disney Fantasy inaugural preview voyage, and they passed out lots of champagne to everybody, or sparkling apple cider or something for the children. Many special glasses for everybody to enjoy. The brand of champagne that's served largely on aboard the Disney Cruise Line. And everybody basically partied up on the decks, the top decks of the Disney Fantasy. I'm holding in my hand, for those of you watching the video version, one of those glasses from the ship that we left with, a great keepsake sort of souvenir from the ship. And the champagne wasn't bad either. I'm not much of a drinker, but it was still definitely enjoyable. But anyway, it certainly is a fun moment on board when everybody gathers on that deck 11 in the pool area. The pools get covered, by the way, for special occasions. They have these automated coverings that just completely turn the pool areas into a deck, and lots of people crowd in front of it to commemorate that moment when the ship moves away from Port Canaveral. The characters come out and everybody does a song and dance, and at that point you either want to join in the party or you've had enough and you can go back to your room, and if you have a balcony you can enjoy it there instead, and that's what I did. I ended up going back to our private balcony, semi-private balcony, and watching Port Canaveral go away. Here, actually, for those of you watching the video version, you can see the view from my balcony, and you can see the people who were on the balcony next to me. So that's why I say it's a sort of private balcony. But anyway, it was a wonderful moment just to watch Port Canaveral, disappear as people are waving at you or to you from the shore. Other little smaller boats go by and honk their horns and wave, and then you're off to the open sea, which is always just a great moment on the Disney cruise. Now, this particular cruise had 3 really special surprise moments that nobody on board had any idea was coming, and that everybody was really, really excited about. The Disney Fantasy, this new ship, actually met up with the Disney Dream 3 times throughout these 3 days. And the first happened unexpectedly at 10:30 p.m., that's well after dark. I was actually sitting at dinner when the captain came on the speakers over the whole ship and announced that it was about maybe an hour prior, announced that at 10:30 we'd be meeting up with the Disney Dream, sitting side by side, and we'd get to see the ship across the waters, which is really exciting. So I obviously finished up my dinner and headed up to the top deck and spotted the Dream off in the distance. And then the next surprise happened, which was even better. They announced that it was, of course, it was Pirates of the Caribbean night aboard the Fantasy. It was also the same aboard the Dream, and that both ships would be launching their Buccaneer Blast fireworks, one right after the other. Certainly a amazingly unique view, one view you normally never get to see. So we on the Fantasy got to watch the fireworks shot off the Dream from not too far away, and then they, after that, got to watch the fireworks shot off of the Fantasy, and it was just an amazing moment for those aboard both ships. And of course I had my camera, and I didn't have all my equipment with me at dinner though, so I took whatever camera that I had, held it up in the air, and recorded the best copy of the fireworks show that I could, and I have posted that over at InsideTheMagic.net as well, and on our YouTube channel. So if you want to see that fireworks show and the excitement that was around the Fantasy, you can certainly tune in for all of that as well. We thought at the time that was going to be it for meeting up with the Dream, but then the next surprise happened the next day when everybody was we were docked at Castaway Cay, Disney's private island, which is always an enjoyable adventure. You dock there and you get on a tram, and actually while I was on the tram I spotted Captain Jack Sparrow as we were flying by, and he gave everybody a wave aboard, and you get off. It's this new ship docked at Castaway Cay, and the background and characters are there, and Donald is there to greet you, and you see your really first good glimpse of the Disney Fantasy, or I saw my first good glimpse of the Disney Fantasy from a distance, docked there at Castaway Cay, which was nice. And then I made my way over to the tram and made my way over to Serenity Bay, which is the adult area of Castaway Cay. And then I looked up and I saw what I initially for a second thought was the Disney Fantasy sailing and moving, and I thought, well, that can't be good. I'm on the island and our ship is moving. And then it dawned on me that no, that wasn't the Fantasy. It was actually the Disney Dream coming to meet up with the Fantasy for a second time, this time during the day instead of at night. The two ships once again got very, very close to each other, and at that point I decided to abandon Serenity Bay and head back to the ships because I wanted to see what was going to happen with both of these cruise ships. One just over a year old, one brand new, hasn't even sailed the maiden voyage yet. Definitely a rare sight. Normally these two ships will not be parked at the same port ever. They don't sail the same itineraries. You're not going to pass at the seas, and it was just a sort of a once in a lifetime moment here. So I definitely wanted to get as close as possible to see the ship I was on, the Disney Fantasy, and the Disney Dream very, very nearby. So then I got back on the ship. I actually had a few things to do. It was moving on in the day. I had many things to do. Actually, all 3 of my days aboard the ship were packed, and I watched the Disney Dream sail away once again for the second time. So I went about my day at that point doing a few other things, only to find they once again, the Disney Fantasy, after leaving Castaway Cay, caught back up to the Disney Dream, and this was the most spectacular of the 3 meetings at all. I think the Dream had slowed down so that the Fantasy could catch up, and we were really speeding along the ocean to catch up, and sailing side by side with the Dream was really fantastic, just to see essentially mirror images of the ship as we moved on. And at that point, finally, the moment that everybody was waiting for, the captains of both ships decided to begin a horn battle between the Disney Dream and the Disney Fantasy. And the horns, of course, on these Disney cruises are entirely unique. They play Disney tunes, and as always, I had my my video camera ready to go. And you know what? Let me give my voice a bit of a rest here for a minute. I'll turn down the music here. Let's play a little bit of what this horn battle was like between the Disney Dream and the Disney Fantasy. So there you go, just a bit of the horn battle that ensued between the 2 ships sailing side by side. A really unique and certainly exciting moment for everybody who was on board. I actually witnessed it and was not expecting it to happen, standing on one of the more private balconies of the ship in the rainforest area of the Senses Spa. So I had a pretty private view of the Dream sailing away there, or sailing side by side, and it was just the final time we would be seeing the Dream on this voyage, and it was a wonderfully unique and exciting event that was the first time it had happened between the Disney Dream and the Disney Fantasy. And of course, if you want to watch that whole video, head on over to InsideTheMagic.net, where you can see the fireworks, you can see the 2 ships at Castaway Cay, and see that horn battle as well. So now let's move back into the topic of more different features that are aboard the Disney Dream that are not part of the Disney. That are on the Disney Fantasy that are not part of the Disney Dream. And actually, one of them it's something that is on both ships that I did not have a chance to experience when I was on the Disney Dream last year is something called the D Lounge. It's sort of I wouldn't call it a nightclub, but it's an area of the ship that families can all attend together And there's certain games that go on. There's bingo, there's karaoke, and it's family style entertainment in sort of a casual nightclub sort of atmosphere. And it's one of those things that I don't particularly enjoy karaoke, but I know a lot of people do. And it seemed like those who were there, the small crowd that I saw that was there, seemed to be having a good time. The particularly unique act that was up on stage when I walked in there just happened to be the two girls who were next to us in the very stateroom next over. We had heard in our stateroom when we were there, we kind of heard a ukulele playing, which was odd. And then we came to find out that the two were up on stage. We just happened to see them up in the D lounge playing ukulele and singing, which was sort of unique and different. But anyway, moving on from there, something that is new to the Disney Fantasy, different than the adult district, nightclub district on the Disney Dream, is the Europa district on the Fantasy. Each of the areas of this Europa district is themed loosely to a different country around Europe, and in my opinion, this Europa district is much more enjoyable, and I liked it a lot more than the Disney Dream area that had all the nightclubs in it. It's I don't know. There's just something about the theme to the Europa area rather than the district on the Dream. I just like the Europa theme better. There's a lot more. I don't know. There's just something about hanging around in there that I just particularly enjoyed more than on the Dream. When you first walk into the Europa area, you enter La Piazza, which is an Italian themed area, sort of themed to an Italian carousel, but really lots of bright lights, little individual lights adorning the top of this bar area, circular bar area, and nearby, also in the area, excuse me, was a small jazz band playing, which I found to be particularly enjoyable. I really enjoyed jazz music. I enjoy live music, and it was nice to see that aboard the ship in this area as well. Completing sort of the Italian theme was a Vespa scooter that you could sit there and take pictures on and just kind of hang out in the area, sit on the comfy seats, order some drinks, and just chit chat and hang out late at night. Of course, the Europa area of the ship is for adults only, 18 plus, and it is open to the late hours depending on the club. There are multiple clubs within the Europa area, and some of them are open as late as 2 a.m., which is the latest anything is open aboard the ship. So that's certainly the nighttime area to hang out. And also further down there's some food, a little tiny buffet that was being served as well, which I didn't expect to see. Some nice chicken on a stick and some jalapeno poppers and some beef empanadas, which were all actually pretty good. So I was happy to find that for a late night snack into the wee hours of the morning. One of the clubs that's inside, the lounges, if you will, that's inside the Europa area is called O'Gill's Pub. And as you might imagine from the name of it, it is an Irish bar. And it's certainly heavily themed to the concept of being Irish. There are bright green shamrocks all over the floor and throughout the environment. And it's when I was there, of course, it was March Madness going on this weekend, basketball and all that. And they were playing the basketball game. And people were drinking and yelling and screaming at the TV and just having a good time and really enjoying the atmosphere and the whole notion of just kind of sitting there and enjoying the whole thing, and definitely a comfortable area to sit in. O'Gill's wasn't necessarily my favorite of the bunch, but definitely for those of you who are Irish, I think you'll find some enjoyment sitting in there. Another of the clubs or lounges inside Europa is called Ooh La La, and this one is in place of the Pink Champagne Lounge on the Dream, which some people really like, some people don't like. I think they've done a good job sort of incorporating the best elements from the Pink Champagne Lounge into this new France, Paris themed Ooh La La area. There's definitely still around the bar area a lot of bubbles incorporated into the design, and the whole room just has a really dark, nice, casual feel. There's lots of chaise lounges and really uniquely designed chairs. Very dark environment that you can certainly, after you've been out in the hot sun all day and swimming and aquaducking and all of that, you can just sit down and enjoy some late night relaxation, have a few drinks and chat with some friends, and just party it up in a more casual, cozy environment at night. Likewise, another sort of similar area that is aboard the Disney Dream that's been enhanced aboard the Fantasy is the Skyline Lounge. And this is where the virtual windows, these huge panoramic virtual windows, display skylines from around the world this time. It was different cities around the United States on the Dream, and now, consistent with the Europa theme on the Disney Fantasy, you see London, you see just countries from all over Europe as they magically change out these virtual windows. Definitely sort of a relaxing, very contemporary, very modern look to the whole area as part of the Europa area. Anyway, so moving on from there, there is, let's see, one more that we haven't talked about yet as part of Europa, and it's kind of the most unique of the bunch, certainly the most high energy of the bunch. It's called the Tube, and the Tube is referring to the Tube in England, or the London Underground, the subway system, and that is the theme of this nightclub. This is certainly the dance club of the bunch at Europa. This is the one that's open till 2 in the morning, and not only does it feature a bar, it also has lots of seating that's heavily themed to the idea of this subway car. There's even these little round seats and maps, sort of subway maps that you can see throughout the area, and things you can hold on to as if you're traveling. And in addition, there's a big dance floor with lots of colored lights, and the London, England theme carries through the whole area. So overall, I really enjoyed Europa. We went there a few times, and I enjoyed hanging out there late at night. I'm not much of a, I don't dance, I don't really drink, but it was certainly a good place to socialize, run into some people run into people you've met on board, and just generally have a good time late at night without any kids around. It's adults 18 plus only area, an improvement over the same sort of area on the Dream in my opinion. So let's move on to some additional entertainment that's around the Disney Fantasy. There's one particular act that I saw as soon as I got on board, and continued to see them playing throughout the ship, up on deck and here and there. It was a guy with his, I'm pretty sure he played guitar most of the time, though I think he had a few other musical instruments as well, and then a girl who was a singer. Definitely a good duo to be entertaining there. Up on deck, I also saw another guitarist who was also a singer, playing some tunes, and as I said, there was a jazz band in the La Piazza area of Europa. Good to see live musical entertainment from throughout the ship. Also, as you're wandering the Disney Fantasy, there's certainly plenty of character interactions to be found. You'll find just random meet and greets that seem to pop up here and there. Mickey Mouse is dressed in his captain outfit. You'll find Aladdin just hanging around the atrium, ready to meet guests, and Aladdin was definitely very personable aboard the Disney Fantasy. At certain times, the Disney princesses will all come out into the atrium, appearing on the balconies and then descending the grand staircase, and just wonderful, wonderful photo opportunities for everybody who is around. They are actually, you get a navigator, as it's called, a sort of a schedule, a guide in your stateroom every day, and it does have a list of the character meet and greets that'll be happening around the ship throughout the day. So if you're big into taking pictures with characters, then a trip aboard the Disney Fantasy, definitely a great way to get that accomplished. Now, here's something that I was really excited to try out aboard the Disney Fantasy, because it's one of the few things I did not have time to experience on the Disney Dream, and it has been improved aboard the Fantasy. It is the Midship Detective Agency, which we actually talked about recently here on the show when I interviewed Imagineer Jonathan Ackley. Of course, we were talking about Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom, the newest interactive game over at the Magic Kingdom here at Walt Disney World, but he was also the creator of this Midship Detective Agency, which, as he had said in our interview, he had actually pitched it to Disney after developing the concept of Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom. Of course, it premiered last year aboard the Disney Dream, and now they've enhanced the Midship Detective Agency with the Muppets as well this time around. You can still play the same games that you could play aboard the Disney Dream. That is, there's a Mickey Mouse, Goofy, those type of characters game. There's also a Dalmatians game that you can play, but in addition to that, there is now a Muppets game, and the Muppets game is definitely distinctly made for you to to really be more involved. The Mickey and the Dalmatian game you can finish, with younger kids fairly quickly and get it accomplished. Whereas the Muppets one, you actually have to do a little bit of thinking, more running around the ship, and basically, well, I would tell you the premise of it, but I'd rather somebody else talk a little bit about it here. Once again, I'm going to give my voice a little bit of a rest here as I take you on board to the Disney Fantasy for the introduction area. I don't want to spoil too much here, but I do want to play the introduction of when you first start out playing the midship detective agency featuring the Muppets, and you may recognize the voices that show up here.
This is coming along perfectly. I get
Mickey!
desk.
Hey, Mickey, where are... Pepe, what are you doing in Mickey's office? I have an important case.
Well,
No?
Milky Mouse is out to lunch, okay?
Okay.
I don't mean this disrespectfully.
Okay.
But he put me in charge, okay?
You gotta be kidding.
No, it's true. I'm in charge, so what is the problem?
Okay, listen, someone has taken all our props and we can't perform the show without them.
Oh, Kermit! Kissy, kissy!
No?
Now that we are on a romantic cruise, where are you taking off for dinner tonight, hey?
Piggy, I can't think about that. Someone has taken all our props and we can't perform our show without them.
I'm available.
Stuff it, Shrimp!
Okay.
We'll talk about this later.
Good grief. Pepe, what we need is a real detective. Hey, how about you? Can you help us?
Oh, I don't think so, Carmen. I think we could do better, okay?
No, listen, really, we need your help to find our missing props or we won't be able to put on our show. You're gonna have to search all over the ship.
So there you go, a little bit of an introduction to the Muppets Adventure Game, part of the Midship Detective Agency aboard the Disney Fantasy. Now, the actual game itself is played by picking up at a couple of kiosks throughout the ship. You pick up a guide, a map to the various pieces of enchanted artwork that are throughout the ship. And we talked about enchanted artwork when we talked about the Dream last year. If you don't know what enchanted artwork is, it's basically these framed pieces of art on the walls throughout the ship that come alive when you walk up to them. They are... they look like regular bits of artwork, but then you walk up to them and they sense that you're there, and they show you a little scene of animation, which is a lot of fun. But then when you're playing the Midship Detective Agency, you actually grab a special card and you hold it up to the artwork, and even more happens. Definitely a very interesting game, very similar to Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom, but very different in many ways, and I actually enjoyed playing through the Muppet Adventure Game even more than Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom at the Magic Kingdom. I thought this game had more interactivity, where you pulled up the card and you move stuff around, and you actually virtually like shine a flashlight, or you'll turn knobs just by moving your card around in front of this artwork. So it's a fun game that I really enjoyed, and I'm not going to go actually too much more into it on this week's show, because I do have much more to talk about, including some chats with some Imagineers on an upcoming show, a little bit more in depth into what this Muppets Adventure Game is all about. So right now, during this sort of overview of the Disney Fantasy, we're just going to move on from there, and I'll say that it is a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed playing it. As I said, I kind of I think I actually enjoyed it more than Sorcerers of the Magic Kingdom, and I wish more of these sort of interactive elements were incorporated into Sorcerers, which is more like just holding up a card and then watching something. So anyway, more on the Muppets Adventure Game very, very soon. Moving on from there, though, something else brand new for the Disney Fantasy was in the Walt Disney Theater, a new show, and it's called Wishes, which, of course, Disney fans know Wishes from Walt Disney World, from the Magic Kingdom. And this show, Wishes, is set, strangely enough, at Disneyland. It actually incorporates a bit of the Wishes soundtrack, the familiar tune from Wishes, into the show, and it's actually set amongst this group of kids who are about to graduate. And here, actually, I might as well play some Wishes here in the background. And the show centers around these new characters that are graduating from high school, moving on to college, and they're all going their separate ways. And they make one final Disney wish, and it kind of takes them on an adventure through the different worlds of Disney, interacting with different Disney characters throughout the multiple scenes that take place and unfold from there. And it's a good show. I think like the Believe show that I talked about from the Disney Dream, that was new to that ship, and I was also playing on the Disney Fantasy. This new Wishes show, you don't really ever necessarily care about the new characters, these kids, these high school kids, and their storyline. All you really sort of want to see is all of the great Disney characters and the songs that they perform in these great stage performances. And as they go through in this Wishes show, they encounter Timon and Pumbaa from The Lion King, and they do Hakuna Matata. And yes, actually, in the chat room, Pie Guy asks, is it like grad night at Disney? And yeah, it kind of has that same sort of feel, as if they are, almost attending that, although it's a little bit more sort of a magical event where they make a wish at the wishing well at Disneyland, and they are magically transported into these worlds of Disney. But anyway, so that you go through the worlds of Pumbaa and Timon. And then they get transported off to the world of the Jungle Book and into the world of Hercules. And each time throughout all these different Disney movies, the characters are interacting with the familiar Disney characters in this big song and dance number. And then there's Mulan as well. And these are all, fairly enjoyable scenes, though not necessarily the best songs, or at least my favorite Disney songs. But the one that everybody was really looking forward to seeing it was the scene from Tangled, which is a recreation of the Snuggly Duckling there during the Wishes show, and you see Rapunzel and Flynn Rider and the whole gang of well, they're not really villains, but thugs in there singing the I've Got a Dream song, and definitely was a great musical number there. And just to share one more little bit of audio and video from the Disney Fantasy, I want to share a few highlights that Disney provided from this Wishes show, so you can hear, and for those of you watching the video, you can see a bit of this Rapunzel Tangled scene, as well as one scene that follows that is a particularly unique sort of contemporary take on a familiar Disney classic. So let's go over to the the Walt Disney Theater for a few samples of Wishes. So there you go, a couple of quick highlights from the Wishes show, and a lot of mixed reactions regarding that Pinocchio bit that you heard there at the end. Everybody seemed to enjoy the Rapunzel Tangled part of the show. The Pinocchio sort of contemporary modern remix of that song, it was a little bit odd, and it seemed a little out of place in the show as well. The rest of the show performed very traditional, direct from the movie versions of the songs, and then it's kind of stuck in that one, and it fit in the story a little bit because one of the characters in the show was interested in leaving high school and going to dance school for college and wanted to become a dancer, so that's how they incorporated her storyline into it, and she, danced with Pinocchio in that very contemporary remix of the song. But in my opinion, I didn't like it. Some other people really, really liked it, so Either way. Anyway, moving on from there, there were more scenes even after that once again stuck with the traditional. Sebastian came out and sang Kiss the Girl with the special appearance by Flounder, which I really enjoyed in puppet form while there was a boat in the background and all of that. And then there was they were kind of wrapping up with Lilo and Stitch with a Hawaiian roller coaster. And in the end, there was another sort of modern dance song that wasn't a Disney song. It was really just kind of this high school graduation moment where all the students were dancing with fireworks and smoke and all of that kind of stuff. I don't know. It just seemed really disjointed at times. Overall, the show was entertaining. I would recommend going to see it if for nothing else than just to see the Rapunzel Tangled scene. But I kind of left feeling the same way I did coming out of the Believe show aboard the Disney Dream, that it was all of the individual Disney song scenes were very, very entertaining, very, very well done. But the rest of the story, I didn't really care for much. I didn't care about the new characters for the show, didn't really care who they are or what they were doing, and just wanted to enjoy it. There was nothing wrong with the actors or the singers or anything. It was really just the beginning and the end. I was just kind of like, yeah, chop those parts off and just go with the Disney songs. But so that's in the Walt Disney Theater. Also new aboard the Disney Fantasy and the Walt Disney Theater is the California Adventure version of Aladdin, the musical, which I popped in for about the first 10 minutes or so from, and saw that it was more or less the same show as with the Disney California Adventure version. It was there have been some subtle changes to make it fit on a cruise ship. Aladdin doesn't ride in on a big elephant, but rather rides in on a horse instead, and just kind of subtle changes like that. But for the most part, it's the same show you're used to, and not a real horse, a fake horse, but same show you're basically used to from seeing it at Disney California Adventure. And yes, in the chat room, Nemo, anyway, mentions there's no flying carpet, and that's correct. There is no flying carpet as part of the California Adventure, or rather as part of the show on the Walt Disney Theater versus the flying carpet that flies over the audience in California Adventure. So that's definitely one of the main differences, and a lot of projections are used as well instead of sets. There are some big elaborate sets, but there's also some projected sets instead, because you can only fit so many sets from on a cruise ship, I suppose. So anyway, that's it for the Walt Disney Theater. Let's move on to something else now completely. Let's go back up onto the decks, and we've got Goofy Sports and Goofy Golf are essentially identical to how they are in the Disney Dream. On the Disney Fantasy, there's Goofy Sports, a basketball court. There's a Goofy Golf, which, as you might imagine, is miniature golf, and it's essentially the exact same miniature golf course that is aboard the Disney Dream as well. It's certainly, it's a fun little area where you can play mini golf at sea while looking over the balcony and seeing the ocean out there. Definitely a unique opportunity there. It does have, it was kind of odd. It has set hours posted for you to be able to play the golf, but the clubs and the balls are still out there late at night. So I guess conceivably you could go out there very late at night and play mini golf as long as you're quiet. You don't want to bug people too much. But anyway, it is there. But basketball, you definitely want to stop. I think the hours for basketball stops at 6 p.m. because you could hear the thumping of the basketball on the deck below, which is not the most pleasant thing in the world for people to hear. So that is that for Goofy Sports and Goofy Golf and all of that. Moving on to another new feature aboard the Disney Fantasy, and this is one that those of you with young ones would certainly enjoy, something that's been very popular in the Disney parks, and it's located on Deck 5 just opposite the big chandelier in the atrium, and that is the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. This is not on the Disney Dream. It's something new for the Disney Fantasy, and they've done a really nice job incorporating this experience into the cruise ship environment. It looks just like you might imagine, just as it does in the theme parks, with really, princessy salon environment, big golden plush chairs that you can sit in, and lots of princess costumes, even a few exclusive sort of mermaid costumes for the Disney Cruise Line that girls can be dressed up in and, get made to be all princessy while at sea. But what I, of course, found really interesting is, as nice as the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique looks during its normal time, the way that it's made over for the night that is Pirates in the Caribbean, it actually is transformed into the Pirates League, which, of course, in the parks, there's two separate things. There's the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, and there's the Pirates League, which is in Adventureland. But on the ship, for the one night only, aboard these, what's going to be 7-night voyages for the Disney Fantasy, all of the pink, gentle lighting in the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique becomes red, harsh lighting, and the seats are covered in these mesh sort of potato sacks, if you will, with the Pirates League logo on it. And all the girls that want to become princesses by day actually want to become pirates by night. Of course, boys too. They all take the pirate oath and get eye patches and hooks and swords and bandanas and become pirates in honor of Pirates in the Caribbean night. And everybody looked like they were having a really good time there. The staff was incredibly nice throughout there. I walked through both during the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique time as well as the Pirates League time, and everybody just seemed to be having a wonderful time. It seems like it's a very, very welcome addition to the whole cruise experience. Of course, it is extra, as you might imagine. Not everything is included with a Disney cruise. While food is and your stateroom is and all of the entertainment is, something extra like the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique does cost a bit more. I unfortunately don't have it on hand exactly how much it is, but I'll be sure to post about that when I've got video that I shot in there as well, and I'll post about that very soon. So, with that said, I actually want to take a short break here from talking about the Disney Fantasy to move on to a topic that is not quite Disney related, but something that I, now that we're an hour and a half into the show, must put in a quick mention for. Yeah, you probably guessed it. It is an advertisement. It's Lanyard Lab, actually. Let's just take a break here to mention that when I'm not running around and going on Disney cruise or going to the theme parks, I do have a day job, and that is running the business called Lanyard Lab. You can check it out over at lanyardlab.com. Maybe you're going to be going on a Disney cruise and you're having a lot of people together and you want to wear lanyards all customized to say that you're going to be going on this voyage together. We've actually had a pretty good amount of people ordering lanyards just like that. It's a great idea. You can submit any text, any fonts, any colors that you want to put on there. You can put your family name on there, your gathering, and just check it out over at lanyardlab.com. That's where you can submit for a free price quote and a preview of what your lanyards will look like, and you can order online. It's as simple as that. So do check it out over at lanyardlab.com. So with that out of the way, let's jump right back into the topic of the Disney Fantasy, which we've been talking about for quite some time now. I know I promised you it was not going to run for 3 hours and 30 minutes, and I promised you that it will not, because I've really only got a couple of more topics left, but one of them is the most important topic for many, many people, and that is the food aboard the Disney Fantasy. One of the things that everybody looks forward to when going on a cruise, that's eating. There's lots and lots of food to be found on a Disney cruise, and on the Disney Fantasy, I had a lot of good food. Well, and I had some bad food, too, unfortunately. And the same was true on the Disney Dream. My report for the Disney Dream last year, I said I was never blown away by the food. I thought a lot of it was rather mediocre. Now, on the Fantasy, I wouldn't say that. I had some really, really great food, and I will focus on that, certainly. But I'm also going to mention where I would recommend avoiding a little bit, because I was not thrilled with absolutely everything that I ate. So one of the places that's almost always available to eat is Cabanas. This is a Finding Nemo themed area that's on deck 11, I believe in the aft portion of deck 11, and it is a buffet style eating. It's available for breakfast, lunch, and sometimes dinner, though I was never entirely clear as to exactly when it was available for dinner. It may have just been because we were on this sort of shorter preview cruise, and so it wasn't entirely clear as to what was available when exactly, but anyway, it was, the food there was hit or miss. So when I first got on board and went to Cabanas for lunch, I actually found the food to be pretty good. When I got on board the Disney Dream last year, the food in Cabanas was not good at all. I really didn't like it, whereas this time around, it was enjoyable, and the atmosphere around Cabanas is certainly a wonderful thing. It's exactly the same on the Fantasy as it is on the Dream. As I said, it's Finding Nemo theme, so you've got these big mosaics with an undersea theme to it with all these Finding Nemo characters. You've got the Mine seagulls all over the restaurant, and it's just got a great beach theme to it throughout the whole restaurant, and it is simply a fun place and a well, I wouldn't say it's relaxing, but it's an enjoyable place to sit in, and lots of great views for the outside deck areas to sit in. For lunch, I had quite a wide variety of foods, and I did, for some reason I didn't take pictures of all of the buffet options, but I did take a picture of my particular plate that I loaded up with just the most random variety of food when I first got on board, because I didn't know what I wanted. So I was just like, I'll take a little of this and a little of that, and that's really what a buffet is all about. So, looking at, for those of you watching the video version and looking at my random plate of food from when I first got on board, you'll see a couple of lamb chops, a chicken strip, a slice of bread, some Asian noodles, some cheese, some cold cuts, some soup that I honestly don't even remember what the soup was. I think it was potato leek soup, but I could be mistaken, and some other veggies, and surprisingly, all of it was okay. None of it was spectacular, but it was all entirely edible, and somewhat enjoyable. And even the chicken strip was very close to those old good chicken strips that I used to enjoy in the theme parks before they went away. So, that was good. Breakfast I found to be even better than the lunch offerings in Cabanas. There was a wonderful selection of rolls and pastries and all your breakfast, things that you would want. Bacon and sausage and eggs and omelets and pancakes and waffles and all that stuff that you would expect out of a buffet breakfast offering anywhere. It's definitely available in Cabanas, and really not much to complain about there. So it's a little bit hit or miss when it comes to Cabanas, but more enjoyable than not, I would say, this time around, which was good. Cabanas hours, though, you have to be careful of, because they kind of stop serving at times you may not expect them to. We definitely tried to go there for lunch one day, and all of a sudden it was closed. We had missed it by about 15 minutes, and it was closed for a few hours as they turned it over to dinner service, and then we went back and after dinner, and it wasn't even open, and I don't know, it was very confusing as to exactly when Cabanas was going to be open. It's not a 24-hour buffet, though there is 24-hour room service available if you do get hungry at bizarre hours of the day. When Cabanas is not open, however, and while it is as well, there are some quick service sort of windows out in the main Deck 11 area, and these windows are themed to cars. And it's also the same as it is on the Disney Dream. There's a Luigi's Pizza area, and there's also a Tow Mater grill, of course themed to the character of Mater, and that one has hamburgers and cheeseburgers and chicken tenders and bratwurst and hot dogs. And then there's Fillmore's food as well. It's called Fillmore's Favorites, and that has some sandwiches and some lighter options, sort of mirroring the character of Fillmore from the Cars films. And in this whole sort of outdoor quick service counter area, the food was probably not as good as some of the other options. I had a bratwurst that tasted more like a breakfast sausage than a bratwurst. The guy I asked for the bratwurst didn't even know what a bratwurst was. I had to tell him a sausage, and then he realized what it was. The fries were okay, as were these little tiny wraps and these sort of pre-made paninis, sandwiches. It was all, it was edible, but it was nothing special. But if you're just hungry, you've been swimming, and you really need something to eat, then, I suppose you can grab that real quick if you absolutely had to. But the real focus of the food aboard the Disney Fantasy are the various restaurants that are available to eat at. And in the rotational dining, the first one that we ate at on the Friday night when we got on board was Animator's Palate. And Animator's Palate is a restaurant that appears on all of the Disney cruise ships, though it's not always the same. In fact, it's very different. The Animator's Palate that's aboard the Disney Magic and the Disney Wonder has sort of a motif to it and a certain act that happens with changing from black and white to color throughout the dinner, and that doesn't happen on the Dream and the Fantasy. On the Disney Dream, they incorporate Turtle Talk with Crush, which I didn't particularly like last year. I thought it interfered with the dining experience. Well, now this time around, they've added an entirely new form of entertainment that they are calling animation magic, and this happens throughout the course of dinner when you first sit down at your table in Animator's Palate. And the whole restaurant is themed to the topic of animation. There's big video screens throughout the restaurant that play clips from Disney animated movies, and there's a lot of color throughout the restaurant, a lot of sort of little books on the walls and little sort of maquettes and various things that tie into animation, a lot of paint brushes and paint and all of that kind of thing. So you sit down at your table in the Animator's Palette, and your placemat in front of you is actually, it's got a marker there, and there's a few different colors on the table, and you want to write your name, you write your stateroom on there, and then there's this sort of blank area that's shaped like a blocky person with its arms stretched out, and it's standing there with a big round head, and you are told to draw whatever you want, whatever character. Create a character in this area. You, of course, want to stay within the lines. You have to stay within the lines for it to be properly incorporated into the show that will come up. And so I thought that when I sat down, I was like, what do I want to draw? I tried to come up with an original character, something unique, and in the end, I decided to draw a little Jack Skellington in my area, which, I'm a big fan of Nightmare Before Christmas, so I threw that in there, and most people just kind of draw your typical sort of stick figures or, nothing special. I wanted to jazz it up a little bit and draw something that's a little bit more recognizable. So at that point, that's at the very beginning when you first sit down. Everybody, doesn't necessarily know what's going on with these drawings, but you happily oblige when your server says for you to draw it. They come by, they pick up your drawings, and dinner sort of proceeds from there. And one of the first things that is on the table when you sit down is some bread and this plate of really, really vibrant, bright red stuff. And most of everybody at the table was looking at it like, what in the world is this bright bowl of red gooey stuff in a dish? And it very much looked like paint. And of course, what it ended up being was this really amazing tasting red pepper puree that you spread on the bread that was there on the table. I actually really, really enjoyed it. It was surprisingly bright in color, but it was a rather enjoyable first introduction to the meal. Now from there, while I'm snacking on the bread and the red pepper puree, I'm watching a lot of clips from various Disney movies around me, and then at some point Mickey Mouse came out on the screen and sort of introduced the concept of what would be going on with Animation Magic. Said, told everybody, hey, I'm going to be coming back in a minute. In the meantime, enjoy your food, and we'll have a show coming soon. And the whole restaurant sort of turned from a normal lighting to very colorful lighting at that point. It wasn't quite the same extreme transition from black and white to color that happens in some of the other animators' palettes, but it was still a noticeable difference in the lighting, and that animation was about to happen. But Mickey wanted everybody to enjoy their food first before any kind of show happened. So, which is good, because that was one of my complaints about Turtle Talk on the Disney Dream, was that Crush was interfering with the meal, whereas this time the whole show happens after the meal is over, which was really nice. So we moved on to the appetizer portion, and unfortunately at this point I have nothing else positive to say about the food that we were served at Animator's Palate. It was probably the worst food that we had the entire time we were on board, which is really unfortunate, because the show that ensued was really, really entertaining, and I feel like they spent too much time on the show and not enough time on the menu. From what I understand, there are different menus at Animator's Palate, and we kind of got stuck with the poorer menu. It was called the Pacific Rim menu. There's also a Captain's Gala menu, which apparently is much, much better. I don't eat seafood. Michelle doesn't eat seafood. And so we were stuck with just a couple of limited selections on this Animator's Palate menu, and we were not happy at all with what we ended up eating. Michelle ordered an appetizer that they had to sort of change around to make not seafood, because it was like a trio of sort of vegetable stuff, but with some shrimp and some this and some that, and so they had to offer just basically the vegetarian version. And she thought it was all right, a little cucumber salad that was okay tasting, and some other little tiny morsels, but it wasn't anything special. At the same time, my first course was a buttered popcorn soup, which was just as gross as you might think it is. Those little jelly beans that are flavored to buttered popcorn? Well, yeah, that's what this soup tasted like, except probably worse. It was like artificial buttered popcorn flavor, and then on the side was a little cup of popcorn covered with caramel, except the popcorn seemed like it had been sitting around for a really long time, so it was squishy and stale. And then the little piece of cornbread that was next to the soup was just falling apart and kind of flavorless. So a big thumbs down for that soup. I would not recommend it in the slightest. Moving on to the actual entree portion, Michelle ordered the sirloin steak that was on the menu, and the steak literally came out with no seasoning whatsoever. It was as if they took a piece of meat, put it on the grill, and that was it. That was a bit odd. It was the most underwhelming steak. I mean, I had a bite of it, and it was just really not good. And the same happened with the veggies and the potato. There was just nothing interesting about any of it. On my entree, I got pork tenderloin, which was over polenta and mushrooms and a sauce. And if it wasn't for the sauce, the pork would have had absolutely no flavor whatsoever. The polenta was cheesy polenta, and I tasted like 99% cheese and very little polenta. And then the mushrooms, I unfortunately swear they came out of a can. They were not very good at all. And I wish I didn't have this many negative things to say about this meal, because I loved the atmosphere. I loved the restaurant itself, but the meal itself was just not good. And finally, we got to the dessert portion, which looked really good. It was I ordered a sort of a chocolate cake. I guess it was a lava cake with some ice cream on top, and it was all right. It was probably the best thing, other than the red pepper puree, which I really enjoyed. The dessert was probably the best thing that I had there, but it definitely left me really, really hungry. And I mentioned earlier that I ate some food off the buffet in the Europa area. The chicken skewers and the jalapeno poppers and the beef empanadas, those were far better than the food I ate at Animator's Palate, which was, it was very disappointing. I heard from others, those who ate the seafood really enjoyed what they had. Those who attended the menu the following night, the Captain's Gala menu, also enjoyed their meal. So it really just seems like maybe we picked the wrong items on the menu. Maybe we picked the wrong night. I don't know. Well, we didn't really pick the night. The night picked us because it was part of the rotation. But it just ended up that we really did not enjoy our time at Animator's Palate as far as the food goes. But as far as the show, I loved it. Animation Magic, fantastic dinner show, much better than Turtle Talk with Crush for a dinner show. Everybody's drawings that you draw at the beginning of dinner, at the end, come alive on the screen. They dance around, they wave, they move, they conga line, they all come to life individually, and you see everybody's from the entire restaurant, so it takes quite a while for you to finally see yours, but near the end of the whole show, I finally saw my little Jack Skellington dancing around on the screen, which was a very, very enjoyable sight. The only disappointment that I think is to be found in this Animation Magic show is at the end is the best part. It's kind of the highlight of the whole thing, is when these drawings are incorporated into classic Disney films. They're worked into Disney animation, and they mirror movements of Mickey Mouse and the Genie and Jiminy Cricket and all these characters from recognizable Disney films, but not everybody's makes it in there, unfortunately, because there's only a limited number of animated clips. So at that point, a select few people in the restaurant really get extra entertainment out of it, and the rest just kind of sort of enjoy it. And at the end, the credits roll and everybody's names are up on the screen, which is fun. But everybody really had a great time watching that show. It was certainly an enjoyable experience. I would recommend going to Animator's Palette just to watch the show. And I'm going to be posting a video of that whole Animator's Animation Magic show very, very soon on InsideTheMagic.net if you want to see what it's all about. But food, not so good. Show, really, really fantastic. Hopefully they'll improve on the more well-rounded menu for those of us who don't eat seafood. Now, by extreme, and I mean extreme contrast, my dinner the following night was phenomenal. I went to Palo, which, as I said earlier, is an Italian restaurant that's an upcharge normally aboard the ship. $20 more each. Well worth that price. As I said, I didn't pay it on this particular voyage. I gladly would have. I would have paid $40 for this meal. I would have paid, I mean, at a regular restaurant, this meal is probably worth $100. It is a phenomenal Italian restaurant. I enjoyed absolutely everything that I ate there, and I guarantee I'm going to make you hungry as I talk about this one. It was a multi-course meal in a really relaxing environment. You have to be an adult to go in there. You have to dress up. Guys have to wear pants and a collared button-down shirt. Women have to wear a dress, and it's just a nice environment to enter into, and the experience begins not only with some great breads and breadsticks on the table, but a complete offering of antipasto that comes out, and it's just cheeses and meats and olives and olive oils and balsamic vinaigrette and seasonings, and it's just absolutely delicious. I could have just eaten that for dinner all night, and I would have been happy. But of course, there was more than just the antipasta to go around. But I mean, really, as somebody who loves Italian food, I literally could have sat there all night and just eaten the crazy assortment of these prosciutto and all this wonderful cold cuts that came around that were just absolutely delicious. Moving on from there, though, we have the appetizer, the first course of the whole thing. Michelle ordered a mozzarella with plum tomatoes, which I took a bite of hers, had some pesto on there, absolutely delicious, very fresh tomato, just really, really enjoyable appetizer. I had one that I just devoured. It was grilled portobello mushroom and polenta, and comparing it to the canned mushrooms that I had the night before at Animator's Palate, this was delicious. It looked like kind of a big brown slop on the plate. I wouldn't give them big points for presentation necessarily, but the taste blew it away. The sauce that was covering the whole thing was absolutely delicious. There was a fresh basil leaf on top, a Parmesan crisp sticking out of the top of it. It wasn't quite as crispy as it probably should have been, but it was still delicious Parmesan. By the way, there was Parmigiano Reggiano as part of the offering at the beginning, the antipasto, and that was, oh boy, I could just eat that forever. Really, really excellent. So anyway, this polenta and this mushroom, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I would definitely recommend, if you're a fan of portobello mushrooms, you're a fan of polenta, get it for sure. Next, a salad course, soup salad course. Michelle got an arugula salad, which was really refreshing. Of course, arugula naturally peppery, but also combined with a balsamic dressing. Really, really nice combination there. I had a delicious white bean soup. Didn't have quite as many beans as I would have liked. Not quite like a pasta fagioli, but definitely a delicious soup there. Probably my least favorite course of the whole meal, but still very, very good. Right after that, they served everybody a little bit of an aperitif, palate cleanser, this sort of the lemon, very light lemon slushy drink with blueberry in it. I'm not a big fan of lemon, so I actually just took a tiny sip of it and gave the rest to Michelle because she loves lemon, so she devoured hers and mine and kind of threw them back like shots. But not that they were alcohol, but definitely if you're a fan of lemon, you'll certainly enjoy that. But that was to cleanse your palate before moving on to the entree course, and Michelle got a beef tenderloin covered in gorgonzola cheese, which she absolutely loved. I'm not a big fan of gorgonzola or really anything that's sort of in that blue cheese family, so I didn't care for hers, but it was cooked perfectly. She ordered it medium rare, and it came out spot on medium rare, which is always a plus. And this steak, unlike the Animator's Palate one, was seasoned perfectly. Meanwhile, I had a delicious ossobuco, veal with a wonderful red sauce over a creamy risotto, which was cooked perfectly al dente. The ossobuco came with a little spoon to dig into the marrow of the bone. Good Lord, that was delicious. It was, I couldn't eat the whole thing. It was huge. It was so much meat to be found in there, but it was certainly filling, but it was absolutely delicious. I stuffed myself with it, and yet I couldn't pass up dessert. And in fact, before getting dessert, we actually ordered another entree just because we wanted to split it between us just to try it. So we both sampled the beef ravioli, which was very good as well. I easily could have gotten that as my main entree and enjoyed it, but that was kind of a side for both Michelle and I, and we both enjoyed that also. But anyway, I mentioned dessert, So moving on to the dessert course. There was certainly plenty to be enjoyed there. I think the one that everybody gets apparently at Palo, the dessert that everybody wants to eat is the chocolate souffle. That's kind of their main house dessert, and so everybody at the table that I was with got it, and I definitely enjoyed it. They pour into the souffle, which was perfectly risen out of the little ramekin. They poured into it both chocolate and vanilla sauce after sort of pushing it open, and also there was some vanilla ice cream, really fresh, wonderful vanilla ice cream that went with it. Definitely a good souffle. But I also ordered a second dessert because I really wanted to try another one that was on the menu, and I'm glad I did, because this sort of little ganache cylinder with a cannoli on top with some fruit sort of gel on the plate, absolutely just decadent and delicious. The ganache was creamy and dark chocolate and just melted in your mouth. Almost was like a chocolate pudding, but really, really rich. And it was during eating this dessert that I found out that the Disney Dream was approaching outside, and I had to kind of rush up on deck. And it's a good thing I did, because otherwise I would have devoured far too much dessert and I would have regretted it later. So I can credit the Disney Dream for not making me completely pig out on dessert at Palo. But Michelle got a couple of desserts as well. She got let's see, what did she get? She got a panna cotta with some, I think it was like a gelato on the side, in addition to a souffle. And I tried I guess it was gelato. I don't remember exactly, but it was really good. It had some fresh basil worked into it, and it was just... Anyway, it was just delicious. Just course after course of delicious food. I couldn't recommend eating at Palo any more. It was just a wonderful meal that really helped after such a poor meal the night before. So I've got one more restaurant review for you here that I dined at while aboard the Disney Fantasy, if that hasn't made you hungry enough yet. And this final restaurant is the Royal Court. And this is one that's very similar to one that's aboard the Disney Dream, though I think it's called Royal Palace aboard the Disney Dream instead of Royal Court. Very similar decor, though slightly improved on the Fantasy. I think they were a little more careful with the way they decorated it, sort of the character mosaics that are adorning the walls throughout the restaurant, and the use of the gold features throughout the area. I think it's... Got to turn that Italian music off there. We've moved on from Palo. The Royal Court restaurant, definitely a nice area. This is part of the regular rotational dining, and I enjoyed the meal as a whole. We sat down, had some really, really, really fresh bread sitting on the table with a great olive spread. If you're a fan of olives, as I am, it was sort of olives soaked in olive oil. Imagine that, and just putting that on the bread was completely delicious. And moving on from there into more courses, Michelle ordered something that I wish I had for an appetizer. She had a spinach and cheese souffle. This is a French menu that we were having at Royal Court, and it was just a butter-rich, cream-rich souffle that was absolutely delicious. I had a couple of bites of hers. In fact, I think I ended up eating half of it because her appetizer was better than mine, and really, really good. I had duck breast, which I wasn't a big fan of. No, I really like duck confit, and this was not duck confit. It was kind of just a sort of bland duck breast that I was not really thrilled with. But I also got escargot, which somebody else at my table ordered escargot as well and thought it was way too garlicky. I'm a big fan of garlic. I'll eat garlic by itself, and I thought this was wonderfully garlicky. Really enjoyed it, and it came with a nice breadstick to dip in it as well. Certainly a very French dish to go with the French menu. Moving on to soup, Michelle got a French onion soup, which she loved, topped with some Gruyere cheese, very, very stretchy and fresh. I tried it, and her soup was definitely better than the one that I ordered, which was a cauliflower cream soup, normally topped with some sort of a salmon crouton. I don't really like seafood. In fact, I don't like seafood at all, so I asked them to hold the salmon crouton, and apparently that was pretty integral to the dish because the cauliflower cream unto itself was rather boring. It just kind of tasted like cauliflower, so I guess that's what I get for modifying their meal. I probably should have gotten the French onion soup instead. But my entree was fantastic. It was a crusted, I don't think it was Parmesan crusted. I can't remember. I think it was a mustard crusted lamb chop with some au gratin potatoes. Fantastic. Absolutely. It was cooked perfectly. It was tender. It was seasoned well, and the au gratin potatoes were nicely cheesy, but not too cheesy, not like the way too cheesy polenta that I had 2 nights prior at the Animator's Palate. Definitely a really enjoyable meal there. Michelle got a stuffed chicken that she wasn't crazy about, but didn't dislike either. It was, it was enjoyable. For dessert, once again, it was time for a souffle, this time a vanilla souffle instead of chocolate, which was definitely enjoyable there. Very rich, again, with, consistent with French cuisine, very rich. And I had another little chocolate ganache sort of thing, not nearly as good as the one at Palo, but still rather tasty to round it all out. So there is a... Royal Court definitely considerably better than Animator's Palate, not quite as good as Palo, but that's why Palo is an upcharge. Of course, there's also Remy, a French restaurant, a chef's table sort of restaurant for $75 a head. I did not dine at Remy, so I unfortunately cannot talk too much about that. I also did not dine on the Fantasy at Enchanted Garden, which I did visit on the Disney Dream. It's a great, well-themed restaurant, a very visually striking restaurant, but I didn't particularly enjoy the food there. Very seafood-heavy menu back on the Disney Dream. This time around, apparently they've added prime rib to the menu. I'm a big fan of prime rib, so I think I would have enjoyed that, but instead we ate at Palo, which I think was the right decision there. So, moving on to really my last major topic here and talking about the Disney Fantasy as we crest 2 hours here on the show. Still well under that almost 4-hour mark that I talked about the Dream, but, still a long show this week. Anyway, moving on, let's talk about the Senses Spa. This is something Michelle really wanted to do, and I did too, to sort of conclude our trip aboard the Disney Fantasy. We were running around for several days, taking pictures and video and everything, trying to pack in as much as we possibly could through the whole experience, and getting a massage near the end of our trip sounded like a great way to end it all. Unfortunately, it didn't exactly work out the way we had planned. We had signed up. We went over to the Senses Spa the very first day that we were there. And we signed up we were waiting in line. There was a pretty good line, everybody who wanted to sign up for a treatment of some sort in the Senses Spa aboard the Fantasy. We didn't really know what we wanted. We knew we wanted a couples massage of some sort. We wanted to, get a nice, relaxing sort of end of the trip massage, and they handed us a little card that described it didn't describe it. It just offered sort of prices and names for each of the different treatments that you could have. And there was something on there called couples massage. It was, I think, $242 for the pair, for the both of us. So we said, good, that's what we want. And a woman came around as she was sort of helping everybody decide what they want before you got up to the actual register where you would book your treatment. So when she came around, we told her we want this couples massage here, and she responded, well, we have a few different options. We have a hot stone massage, we have a bamboo massage, and something else that I can't remember what the third one was that she said. And we said, well, the hot stone sounds pretty good. We've never had anything like that. And she said, okay, let's mark you down for the hot stone massage, and that's what we signed up for. So we came back, a couple of days later. And first we were taken into the relaxation room after we changed into our robes, and got to sit there for a little while. It was a nice room with these very comfy leather seats. They had some flavored waters, which were pretty good. There was a cucumber water that I particularly enjoyed. Definitely a very relaxing environment in there. Our masseuses, a man and a woman, came in, introduced themselves, led us down the back hall and into a very serene, quiet environment. And in the back we were led into a private couple room with 2 massage beds next to each other, some mood lighting over the top, and we were asked to, of course, lie down, and that's where the massage was going to take place, and we were excited to be lying down and resting and relaxing and not running around the ship, and we're about to have a nice relaxing time having a massage. And then the masseuses proceeded to inflict pain upon us for, I can't, say it any other way. Apparently, unbeknownst to us, what we had signed up for was a deep tissue massage, not a relaxing massage, and we didn't realize it, and it was not explained to us. And of course, a deep tissue massage is intended for people who have a lot of problems with muscles, recurring pain, back pain, if you're an athlete or somebody who works outdoors a lot, or, with your body all the time, and they want to work all the knots and these, toxins out of your system. And they really, really push hard on your muscles and use their elbows and fists and all kinds of stuff in there, and it's definitely not a relaxing experience. But the weird part was that there was parts of it that were relaxing. They did incorporate these hot stones that felt great, rubbing hot stones all over you that sort of eased you and made you feel very comfortable. But then they would counter that with some very, very painful maneuvers. And I'm really not sure why at some point either of us kind of didn't tell them to stop. I guess we thought maybe it was just all part of the massage, and you would go through sort of this initial, muscle kneading process before getting to the ultimately relaxing phase of it. Neither of us are massage experts by any means. We've only had each of us massage before in our lives, and it was an enjoyable experience that time, and this time not so much. So, it seems there was some major miscommunication when we signed up for the massage, and we explained to them, especially when I got the bill afterwards, and it ended up being $80 more than we thought it was going to be. So, upon leaving in pain, feeling worse than when we came in, I explained to them the situation. They did give us the price for the less expensive massage that we thought we were getting, and then proceeded to explain to us that what we signed up for was indeed a deep tissue massage and not a Swedish massage, which is the much more relaxing option, to which I replied, that's what we wanted. That's what we told the woman we wanted, not this, bizarre, painful experience. And literally, I'm sitting here 2:30 in the morning now, 2.5 days later since the massage, and I'm still hurting from this thing. I've got all kinds of soreness all over my body. Definitely not a pleasant experience at all. I don't think there's anything I can really do about it at this point. Technically, we got what we signed up for. It just wasn't, the proper communication. What ultimately happened out of the whole thing, there was a little bit of a positive that came out of it, which was I got a call on board. This is something I probably should have mentioned. On board the Disney Fantasy as well as the Disney Dream, they have these great things called wave phones. Allows you to actually use a phone on board and even on Castaway Cay to call each other on phones, to call back to staterooms. You can't use it to call outside the ship, or rather outside this sort of network, but you can use it to at least communicate with each other, which is great. So I got a call on my wave phone from the spa manager saying she was very surprised to hear I had a complaint. She had never gotten any complaints. Of course, it's a brand new ship. I don't know how she could have gotten any complaints, but anyway, she had wanted to try to, make it up to me a little bit and offered us a chance to enter their rainforest area of the Senses Spa for the rest of the night for no charge, which normally it's, $20 or so to be able to go in there and experience what they had in there. So I gladly took her up on that opportunity. I said maybe that will ease my pain a little bit from this massage. And so I went back in there. That's ultimately where I saw the Disney Dream horn battle from and all of that. And so once in there, I took part in their colorful aromatherapy, light therapy, rainforest showers, which are really interesting. You kind of climb into these little cylinders and they squirt you with all kinds of like Caribbean storm and hurricane and tropical rain and I don't know, all these descriptions. You push a little button and it kind of goes through this little scene in front of you where it squirts you with some hot water and then some cold mist and then hot and then cold and more cold and more cold. It seemed like there was more cold than hot. I don't know that I really enjoyed most of it. The hot one seemed to be the most enjoyable there. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting experience. In addition, they've got some saunas in there as well as a balcony with some jacuzzis and some heated lounge chairs. A nice area to go to. Very quiet in there. Certainly a relaxing area. So I'm glad she offered for me to go in, the ability to go in there. But ultimately, the whole spa situation was a big negative. Not that the spa into itself is negative. Just make sure if you're going to book a massage in there, if you don't know what you're talking about, like I didn't, like Michelle didn't, ask them a million questions. Make sure that what you're booking is exactly what you want and not some, deep tissue massage that's going to leave you in pain for several days. And I'm really, honestly, not even sure what the benefit of this is yet. I'm hoping a week from now, maybe my muscles will feel better than ever, and my body is free of toxins or something. I'm not really sure. But in the meantime, it's not a pleasant experience. Let's move on to something a little bit happier as we wrap up this Disney fantasy adventure. I did have a chance to explore some of the kids' areas aboard the ship, which are pretty much the same as the Disney Dream, though I interacted with it a little bit more. There's this big, great interactive floor in the Oceaneers Club, where you can play all these little games by stomping your feet on these pads. There's also an interactive sort of Turtle Talk with Crush sort of thing, but with Stitch. That is in there as well, and everybody seemed to have a really good time just sort of pounding on the floor and stomping up and down and, you know, making a pizza or throwing Tron discs or all that kind of thing virtually on this big interactive screen. In addition to that, there's, of course, and that's for kids normally. Adults aren't in there. That's for younger, sort of preteen, even before preteen, really, maybe ages 4 to 10 or so, 5 to 10, something like that. And then there's the nursery area, which is for toddlers, and it's a Small World themed. Again, it's pretty much like the Disney Dream, although it is expanded on the Disney Fantasy. On the Disney Dream, the nursery has a really large sleeping area with a lot of cribs, and it's dark and quiet in the back. They realized they didn't need quite such a large area, so on the Disney Fantasy, they expanded the play area. It's a Small World themed play area to take up more of the allotted area instead of that sort of sleeping area for toddlers. And another new area aboard the Disney Fantasy that doesn't exist on the Disney Dream is the ability to view your photos that you've taken around with characters and that sort of thing in this area called Shutters, and it's basically as if you stepped into a camera. And, it's kind of interesting, kind of a different area that's very high-tech looking, and you can use touchscreens and tap your little card to view your photos that you've taken with characters, etc., and buy them right there on the spot. So that's a nice new feature. It's right near the gallery on board as well. Back to the world of kids, there's something called Vibe for teenagers. I wasn't able to fully explore there because there were teenagers on board and they were there, and I didn't want to interfere with their, having fun time and whatever. But if you remember the old Journey into Imagination, the Rainbow Corridor at Epcot, there's something a lot like that in the tube. As you enter, these rainbow colors go flying through the room, a whole just constant wave of a rainbow of colors going down this really long hallway. A really, really cool entrance to Vibe, on the ship. They also have one of the best areas on the ship. The absolute frontmost portion of the ship is dedicated to the teenage pool area, which you can only get to if you are a teenager. There's a special pool and a couple of hot tubs there. You can actually see it if you're standing up in the Satellite Falls area and looking down on it. Definitely a prime area to have a pool. So lucky teenagers that get to enjoy that. And then, of course, no trip to a Disney anything would be complete without a little bit of shopping. And there are plenty of stores aboard the Disney Fantasy with a variety of merchandise. Lots of Inaugural merchandise was on board while I was there. There's miniature versions of the Minnie Mouse statue that's in the main atrium that we had picked up a Donald one for the Disney Dream, so we picked up a Minnie Mouse one aboard here. For those younger ones who want to play dress up, there's like a Captain Mickey Mouse outfit that you can get along with plenty of Disney princess dresses and all of that. Vinylmation collectors, you'll find a special AquaDuck Disney Fantasy Vinylmation on board, and of course, with me being a big fan of the AquaDuck, I had to get one of those. And there's actually a store that's elsewhere on the ship. All those stores are near the Walt Disney Theater on Deck 3, but elsewhere on the ship, closer, I think it's Deck 11, sort of in between the elevators, is a store that's has a lot of sort of miscellaneous items and also has AquaDuck items like a t-shirt and a towel and pins and magnets and pencils and postcards and even new snow globes. So if you're as much of a fan of the AquaDuck as I am, then you'll want to go check out that store because I spent like $90 in there getting all the AquaDuck stuff. So let's really start to wrap this up with the very final event that concludes a trip on the Disney Fantasy. It's in the main atrium, and it's called See You Real Soon. It's when all the main Disney characters come out all at the same time for final meet and greets. They're introduced one by one up on the atrium balconies, and then from there, they're out in the atrium posing for pictures. Not very long lines, surprisingly. I think everybody was packing or in bed. It's at like 10:15 p.m. On the final night, and fortunately, it was right outside the Royal Court restaurant where I was dining. We finished up dining and literally walked out into the See You Real Soon show, and it was nice to see all the characters, princesses, and Mickey and Minnie and Donald and Pluto, and they were all there just posing for photos and really having a good time for a while before wrapping it up and having one final hurrah with a lot of confetti before it all came to an end. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that one of my favorite sights aboard the Disney cruise had nothing to do with the cruise itself, but simply standing on our balcony and watching the sunset. It's one of those moments that Disney can't control. Disney has no control over. It's just a natural occurrence that is just the most beautiful thing in the world. When you're in an at-sea day aboard a Disney cruise and you're standing on the balcony just looking out, watching the sun melt into the ocean, it is just a wonderful, wonderful sight, a wonderful experience, and a great way to sort of wind down each day. For those of you watching the video version here, I want to conclude my long discussion of the Disney Fantasy cruise here with just a couple of personal photos, just to show that I was indeed on board. Here's me sailing away, holding a few streamers on our balcony with Port Canaveral in the distance behind me as we sail away at the beginning, and then, of course, as the fantasy and the dream met each other at Castaway Cay, I had somebody take my picture in front of both of the ships, something you normally can't do. And then near the end, there's these cool sort of round windows throughout the whole ship. And I just wanted to pose in one of them. I took many, many more photos, but I just thought I would throw just a few of them in there just to have a little personal touch here at the end of it all. So that's it. That's the Disney Fantasy experience. I'm sure there's a few things that I overlooked here and there. There's so much to see and do aboard a Disney cruise, and I am going to be posting much, much more, many more photos, hundreds of more photos, in fact, along with quite a few more videos within the next few days and probably next couple of weeks. In fact, over at InsideTheMagic.net, I already have posted plenty for you to see and enjoy. I plan on exploring the Muppet Adventure Game. As I said, more on next week's show. I do have some more, I'll kind of go through the whole process of what it's like to play that game, the interactivity, more specifics about it. You can hear more audio from it, see more video from it, and even hear from some of the Imagineers that created that game. So check that out on an upcoming show. I'm also going to post an article about that coming soon, as well as a number of other topics, a little bit more about the magical portholes, also with an Imagineer, and much, much more. So if you want to see and hear about even more from this newest Disney Cruise Line ship as it approaches its maiden voyage coming up on March 31st. Stick with us over at InsideTheMagic.net. I had a great time. Of course, I want to thank Disney for inviting me to go on the cruise. The point of inviting me, it's not just for me to go and have fun, which of course I did. It was exhausting, though, because it is a working cruise, and I was there with other media and travel agents, as really was making up the entirety of this cruise that I went on, and we were all busy the whole time just scouring the ship so I could bring it all to you and let you know what this new cruise ship is all about, and all the similarities and differences with the Disney Dream and all the other offerings that are out there. So hopefully you've enjoyed this look at the Disney Fantasy, and stay tuned to InsideTheMagic.net for even more in the coming days.
Tomorrow.
And there is where we're going to wrap up show 364, now nearly 3 in the morning here on Eastern Time. But let's see if we can wrap this up before it hits midnight California time. Then technically it is still the Tuesday episode of the show. Thanks for sticking with me for 2 hours and 19 minutes, about an hour and a half shorter than the Disney Dream episode. Plus we had half an hour of regular news at the top. So really about an hour and a half of talking about the fantasy. But anyway, lots more to come on that. that topic, and of course, plenty more to look forward to in the coming months. Once we move past this whole Disney Cruise Line thing, there's still a lot of excitement between Disney's Art of Animation Resort, as well as Cars Land and Buena Vista Street and the Mad Tea Party and everything that'll be happening at Disneyland this summer, and so much more to enjoy. So stick with us for all of that. I do want to thank Magical Travel for sponsoring this episode of Inside the Magic. If you're planning on booking a Disney cruise, you definitely want to give them a ring. Head on over to magicaltravel.com to learn more there. And also, if you want to buy some fun Disney stuff, themeparkconnection.com is the place to do it, whether you're in person at their store or on their eBay site. Just check out their website for more information. And visit us over at lanyardlab.com. Kind of an awkward ad that I threw in there earlier, but I always have to put in that mention real quick because it does pay the bills around here. It is my day job. And, check it out. If you need a lanyard for a business, convention, school, church, whatever, lanyardlab.com, the place to do it. And, of course, InsideTheMagic.net is your source for Disney and theme park news. Between each week's podcast here, you can find plenty of other podcasts, videos, photos, news, articles. Find us on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube as well. We'll be posting lots and lots of videos over at YouTube. We've got millions of views and tens of thousands of subscribers there, so if you haven't checked out our channel, definitely do that. So I do want to thank all of you for listening and for watching each and every week, even at this late night hour. And, of course, shows will be returning to Sunday this coming up weekend, not too many days from now. So stay tuned for that show coming up. So once again, thanks for listening and watching, and please do have a magical week. Goodbye.
Just a dream away. So there's a